Morning, everybody. This is the Franklin County Fiscal Court work session. We are on video conferencing, and this is, we hope that you stick with us and watch us today. We have a very exciting agenda. We're going to get, before we get started in our agenda, at this time, I want to recognize some deaths that are close to us. Number one, Robert Hewitt, our planning and zoning director, has lost his mother-in-law, his wife Sheena's mother, Tammy Jo Owens, and Robert will not be with us today because he is attending the funeral. And we also lost a very good friend, a former judge, and just a great citizen of our community, Judge Bob Arnold. Before we get into our agenda, I'd like for all of us to just take a moment of silence and think about the families of Robert Hewitt and the Arnold family, if you would. So just a moment of silence, please. Thank you, and prayers and thoughts to the Arnold family and to Robert and Sheena for the loss of Sheena's mother. Okay, good morning, everybody, and let's move on to the first item on the agenda, and that is we have special guests today, City Solicitor Ms. Ross, Mayor Wilkerson, Tommy Russell, City Manager, and Jim Parsons, TIF attorney. So with that being said, Mayor, I'll go to you and then you can introduce how you want the speakers to proceed. Mayor, well, all of you from the city, welcome. We appreciate you being here and look forward to this update of parcel B and C.
Thank you, Judge, and good to see everyone on here all in one place. And on behalf of the commission, I'm very happy to be here today to, bring to you the master development agreement that we've agreed on thus far, and also just give you a high-level overview. But if we need to get into more specifics, we do have our city attorney, Laura Ross, and we have our attorney, Jim Parsons, who helped us, of course, with the development agreement. And also Tommy is on here as well. I don't see Tommy, but no, he's with Laura, right? Okay. But just a high-level overview, obviously I don't need to tell you about this, the parcels B and C development and how we got to this point. But one of the things that we needed to do is to get the development agreement, get the city commission to agree to that first, bring that to you and ask for your participation in helping us to move forward with this. A very high-level overview is we have agreed to, we've applied for a transit center grant to build a new transit center on the development. And whatever cost that is not covered, the city has agreed to finance that or pay for it. It will be owned by the city, so it will be a city property. But beyond that, that should enable the developer to begin work on the rest of the development, including building the Washington Street extension connecting Broadway to Miro Street, demolishing the existing Y that's there, and then proceeding on with the rest of the development. One of the things that we would like to today is to get you all to start thinking about is if you wanted to participate in this, we intend to apply for tax increment financing with the state. And we intend to pledge a percentage of any new additional revenues that come from this project to cover the cost of the infrastructure, including the garage. So that's where we would like to begin discussions with you. And I will, I don't know if Mrs. Ross wants to elaborate on anything, or we could, I'm happy to answer questions as well.
Mayor, if it's okay, let's go to Solicitor Ross and let her talk a little bit, and then we'll open it up for discussion if that's okay with you.
That's fine with me.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ross, for being here.
I'm happy to be here, and hello, everybody. This is the first time I've actually had the opportunity to participate in a fiscal court meeting, so it's good to see everyone, and I'm looking forward to talking with you all this morning. What I intend to do is do exactly what I did for the city when we went over the final master development agreement and give just a very brief overview of the highlights. There's a lot of legalese in there that isn't imperative for what I think your main interests are in this agreement. So we're going to go through some of these provisions that I think you will be interested in. We do have Jim Parsons here who with us, and the developer over the past couple of months has worked very hard to get this agreement in place, to get it in a final and complete and clear form that was unanimously approved by our Board of Commissioners, so that we can talk to you all without any hesitation about where we are right now when we look at the picture of the costs and the benefits and the risks and all the responsibilities of the parties associated with the master development agreement. So I'm going to go over this agreement, which is between the developer, the city, and the city finance department as the agency that is going to be the administrative arm of this whole thing, taking in the funds, et cetera, for the TIF. So that's who it's between, the developer, the city, and the finance department. And it sets forth all of the obligations and an overview of the design, financing, development, and construction of the parcel B and C project. Now, what it doesn't do is give any details of the percentage amounts that the city will be committing and that the county may choose to commit. That will be in the local participation agreement, which will be the next step. So right now, we're just going to go over this master development agreement, and I draw your attention first to the first main part that you want to look at is section 4, and that's the developer's responsibilities. And it also outlines the planned project. So you'll see the private elements briefly described in this section, the mixed use development, $50 million development. And then it also references the public elements, which is of course the transit center and the garage, and explains a little bit about those. The developer per this agreement is required to construct the private elements of this project in accordance with the project vision that's attached to the back of the master development agreement. So if you want to see what the project looks like, and I think you've all seen that on occasion before, that is the developer's commitment to this, is the project vision at the back of the agreement. Any updates to this project vision are going to be subject to approval by the Board of Commissioners. So that means the developer cannot change this significantly without going through the city. Also, the developer has to meet all state and local planning and zoning, permitting, and approval processes. So planning and zoning, they will be going through planning and zoning as they move forward with the project. So the first thing that has to happen is construction of the garage and the transit center. This is all in section 5. And what you'll see that at the same time, or I'm sorry, section 4, concurrently with the construction of the garage and the transit center, the developer is required to demolish the YMCA facilities and do site prep. The developer is also required, while this construction is going on, to convey to the city for no cost the land needed for the garage, and they're required to have all their plans for the private elements completed and approved so that they are ready to move forward with their mixed use development when the garage and the transit center are completed. After the garage and transit center are completed, then the construction of the private elements, all of the mixed use elements, and Washington Street will begin. They are required in this section to complete Washington Street, all the related utilities and sidewalks in accordance with city approved plans. And they're also required to dedicate it as a public street at no cost to the city. This is an important part, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a second. The developer and the city will jointly determine the TIF activation date. Again, this agreement does not activate the TIF. We will have 4 years from the time of state participation, assuming, and we're all assuming we're going to get that, to activate the TIF. It also says the developer is the one that's in charge of preparing the state TIF application when we get to that point, with help from the city, and the city is going to be the one paying all of the application fees and associated costs. So that is section 4 that sets forth what the developer will be doing concurrently with and post construction of the garage. And if you look at section 5, that is where the city's responsibilities are outlined. One thing that's very important to us at this point, because we did have that approval of the master development agreement, is that we have 60 days from the date of that approval, which occurred at our April work session, to pass the ordinance that's going to officially establish the development area. You all will remember the development plan that we went through a few months ago. So we really already have all this in place. Passing the development ordinance is just a formality to set all of this in place and say, yes, we're moving forward. We also have 60 days to execute the local participation agreement, and that will be the next step. And that will be something that we're coming back to you all with details on, including the city's participation goals, after we have some meetings about that with the city. So the city's responsible for the construction of the garage, the transit center, and the related public infrastructure except Washington Street. Washington Street has been assigned to the developer, and there are some conditions on our obligation to both finance and construct this garage. The conditions are: 1, approval of that federal transit grant. That's all important to this project. Also, receipt of at least a year's extension from the state of the time required of the developer to have that garage constructed. So we will need an extension from the state at this point, and we're looking forward to getting that. And then also conditional upon this is that the developer must convey that land needed for the garage to the city. In section 5, it also talks about funding for the garage, and that the city anticipates funding the garage through the grant and through taxable bonds. So that's the city's responsibilities in a nutshell. Then you get on to section 6, and this is where we have the prioritization of the use of the TIF incremental tax revenues. So this sets forth what the money, if any, from this project will go to first, second, third, and fourth. And it also says again that the city and the developer anticipating enacting this TIF no later than 4 years after the execution of the state TIF tax incentive agreement. So if we get to that point and we've activated the TIF, the priority goes as follows. First of all, any payments coming in from the local participation agreement, from those incremental revenues that we may receive from this project, go first and foremost to the annual obligation of the bonds for the garage. After that, they're going to go to other public infrastructure costs for the parking garage and transit center. Once we have all of those things taken care of annually, then it goes to reimbursement of the developer for the cost of that Washington Street portion, which is going to be dedicated to the city. And then finally, the last thing, if there's incremental revenues left over, then we get to look at other eligible capital costs within the development area. So those are the key features of the agreement. Very, very brief overview. And I'll leave it there. I'll turn it over to Jim if he has anything he'd like to add, as this is his crafted document, and we'll open it up to questions.
No, Laura, you did a good job. I think it's a pretty good explanation relative to that, where we are at this particular point in the process. The big change over the original concept, I think, is the issue of the public garage, because originally the developer was going to finance that under the original plan we had more than a year ago, and subject to the incremental tax pledge. And as a result of the potential of the transit center grant, and also the procurement that the city would have to go through relative to that, It's just so much, it's the concept's been changed that the city will build and own and operate operate the garage, and you'll handle all the procurement relative to the garage and things. And really that was kind of driven by the transit center grant and the obligation the city was going to have relative to that.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Laura, I'll start with the first question just to summarize what will be asked of the county. Can you briefly say just to summarize again, what's the obligation for the county? What will be asked for the county?
Sure, Judge. So the next step in the process will be on Monday night. We are anticipating talking about the funding amount of those incremental revenues that the city might pledge and what percentage the city is looking at, because that's going to be the first step to see what amount the city is interested in pledging from those incremental revenues. And then once we have that, we want to have that information ready for you all so that you know what the city has dedicated to the project. And then what we'll do is we will bring the local participation agreement and the development agreement that the county will sign, or I'm sorry, not development agreement, development ordinance, big difference there, that the county will sign as well. We'll bring those to you. And really the only thing that would be asked of the county in that, and we'll get to all that, that's definitely the next step, is the amount of the percentage of the amount of those incremental revenues that would exist from this project, that would be generated from this project via property tax and occupational taxes. We will ask you all to, if you so choose to participate, decide on a percentage of those revenues that you would be willing to dedicate to the project as it's been described in the master development agreement.
Hang on one second, everybody. Just Greg McClovick, if you would, you're coming. Thank you. You muted. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you get it all in?
I think I got it all in, Jeff.
That's great. Thank you very much. Okay. I think it's time to open the floor for discussion with the squires, and if you want to ask a question, say who you would like to ask the question to. Any questions from the squires? First hand is Squire Tracy. Go ahead, Squire.
Thank you, Judge. And just whoever wants to answer this one's fine with me. In regards to the estimated cost of the project, especially the street extension and things of that nature, has the city had anyone outside of city government and or that's not affiliated with the developer look over the estimated cost that was given to you in regards to the street extension?
Are you talking about the actual construction costs, Squire Tracy?
Yeah, they have it listed at like 1.5 or.
We just took the engineering survey pretty much as from, was it Strand or Palmer? I don't know. I've got so many of them going on. Whoever did that. We kind of just leaned on that, to be honest with you, for the costs on that. The number that they've got in there, I think will be a little bit less than that, but I can't swear that because nobody knows what happens when you start construction. But we have not asked for any other outside looks at those construction costs.
Is there, or do you plan on looking for, or looking outside for, just to kind of double check it per se?
Well, when the RFP goes out, it'll go out for the garage itself. You know, it'll go out into the real world, and those costs will come in. Those bids will come in as they are.
Okay.
As far as the cost for the street goes, we've had a couple of conversations about street cost and economics and things of that nature, but right now we haven't planned on looking outside to verify those costs. But we can certainly do that if that would
And then,
help to.
Just for information, the TIF increment is anticipated to pledge for those to reimburse those costs, but they'll have to be documented actual costs. So it's not, even though there's a budgeted number referenced in the agreement, even the city garage cost will have to be based on actual costs. So that you won't be reimbursing estimated costs. The developer and the city will have to document the actual cost for those projects to be eligible for reimbursement under the TIF increment.
Understand that. Obviously so with that being said, the numbers that you're going to rely on are going to be, as far as, let's say, the Washington Street improvements, they're going to be numbers that are given to you by the developer, by individuals that work for him. Is that correct?
Those numbers will still be, as Mr. Parsons alluded, those numbers will still be real life costs. But yes, if that's, I hear what you're saying, Squire.
Okay.
But those
Right,
will be documented costs.
Okay. And as far as the street extension, has anyone spoken to the state to see if they would be interested to kind of help on this project, considering we're at where we are because of the hand they dealt us? Has the state been involved?
We're going to reach out to the state for their participation, as well as an extension for the build. And they have, in a couple of our meetings, they have expressed interest that, they have not shown that they are not pro-project. They actually support the project and want it to move forward. It's just taken us a little while to get to this point, as this is has turned out to be more complicated than what I can understand sometimes. But fortunately, I have Mr. Parsons and Ms. Ross and some very good staff over here to help me.
Okay. And then reading through this, in regards to the parking structure itself, how many, the 300 spaces, does that include the space that will be used up for the city buses, the city transit? Is those 300 part of that, or is it 300 additional to that space?
So there will be, and we're talking amongst ourselves over here a little bit. There will be spaces for the buses themselves. I believe they're separate from the 300 spaces. Now, I think that's right, Tommy.
Yeah.
In that they're going to be separate from the 300 spaces that are on the higher levels of the block.
And of the 300, 150 of those are dedicated to the hotel. Is that still accurate?
150 will be available. There will be an amount of parking spaces available for use by the hotel.
Okay. And then of the remaining 150 per se, are any of those going to be used or designated to the private project elements? And the reason I ask is it says in the agreement, the developer may review and provide comments on the design of the parking garage to ensure the parking garage accommodates the needs of the private project elements.
Yes, we anticipate those parking spaces being available for use by any of the businesses or
To read
other
their brief
entities
and
that
really
come in.
understand their arguments, then frame their arguments.
Okay, I'm sorry, there was an interruption. Go ahead, Ms. Ross, thank you.
I think I was finished actually saying that, yes, they will be available for use for the development.
Okay. And then back to some of the cost. It's got site preparation and public space. Will that be separated out? I mean, when you're looking down there at that project right now, the big site, as far as where the convention center stood, is level. It's my understanding that the infrastructure, utilities, so forth are there. So it'd be very interesting to see how much of that 3.125 is figured in as site prep, considering that property's already been cleaned up and ready to go.
Squire, there was a conversation about utilities and movement of utilities. They haven't been pinpointed to see where they need to be extended, and that even goes along with the streetscape for the extension of Washington, because we plan to ask for the streetscape to look kind of like the Tiger Grant project when we're done here, wider sidewalks, better benches, things of that nature to make this a nicer street than what our normal policy is for streets per Eric Cockley. So, but I don't know that we have seen exactly where all the utilities are and where all the locations are and what they need to be moved to, or if they need to be moved as far as that goes. And I do understand what you're saying is that is flat and it appears that it's ready to go. But that will be coming between a conversation with the developer and us at some time about those costs in there.
And then just one more, in regards to in the section where it's parking garage and transit center, there's several in here that indicate that the developer is going to have a whole lot to say about the parking garage. The parking garage is going to go out to bid and so forth, but like on one of them, it says the construction of the parking garage, or the developer the construction of the parking garage and the private project elements to be constructed by the developer shall be coordinated between the city, the developer, to ensure orderly construction of the overall project of the parking garage. I read that almost like it's almost guaranteed he's going to get this. Is it not going to go out for bid? I mean, there's several line items in here that indicate that looks like he's favored to get it. I'm not sure. I just want to make sure it's going to go out to bid. Everybody's going to have an opportunity to bid on it. They would want to bid on it.
Yeah, the document requires this be publicly bid, and the city's handling all the procurement. The developer knows full well that he is not guaranteed to get this particular project. And in the event, for some reason, that he is the bidder and does receive the bid for this after a full procurement process, it's very likely the start of the private work can start earlier because he could coordinate his work better with the construction of the garage itself. The reason those provisions are in there is just simply the fact that to be sure that the private development and the public construction of the garage all work together. Sometimes when these are done, I mean, I've been involved with projects before where the garage doesn't meet where the private development's supposed to start and things like that. So those provisions are simply to understand that there's the private and the public elements will be constructed on these sites, and that they had the coordination of those have to work together. And so that's the whole purpose of that. And the developer is full well knows that, that the construction of the parking garage will be totally under a separate procurement process, that he may or may not be the bidder for that. Nothing in here gives him any priorities for the bidding, receipt of the bid of that. And the only reason that's in there, again, is to understand that these things have to be coordinated. So the plans for the private development have to be coordinated with the plans for the parking garage.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anyone else have questions? Squire Muller?
Thank you, Judge. First, I want to thank Mr. Parsons, Mayor Wilkerson, Ms. Ross, Tommy, everybody for being here today presenting. I know this has been a long road to get here since our first meeting, our joint meeting, I think, I guess a year and a half ago. I just want to make sure I get this straight, because I've kind of tried to step back from this and kind of looked at it and just listened. So Mr. Parsons said, I guess originally the developer was going to pay for the parking garage. And then I believe the previous city manager got the ball rolling with the grant for the transit center. And so now I guess the developer is kind of quote unquote off the hook for the parking garage. And then the city and or county or whoever is going to pay the balance But I guess where I'm kind of confused is, the developer basically, was winning bid on this property, and I assume it's probably $1.2 million worth of property in the middle of our downtown near the river. So that's a bonus right there. And I didn't realize till recently, everyone keeps saying that he's going to build Washington Street. And I thought that's kind of was his part to pay per se. But now I guess after I read this is he's actually getting paid to do that. So I guess I'm a little confused, and I don't know who this question would be. Maybe Mayor Wilkerson. So at the end of the day, I mean, he'll be paid for that work being done. So does he have skin in the game other than what he's investing? I guess if that makes sense. I know I rambled a little bit, but I'm just wanting to understand it. And I hope that makes sense. Thank you.
Right. And I'll take it. It is, he will have an opportunity, or whoever, the developer will have an opportunity to get reimbursed after the city is reimbursed for the cost of the debt service on the debt. So we have to get paid back first. So once we don't have any skin in the game any longer, then he would have an opportunity to get paid back.
Okay, so I believe Ms. Ross said potentially you all will come to the county and ask for assistance in that. So would the verbiage also read that our debt would be paid off prior to the Washington Street debt? Is that fair to say from a legality standpoint?
No. Yes, that's absolutely fair to say. You'll be looking at the exact same order of priority that the city is looking at when in this master development agreement. So
Yeah.
the order of priority, we anticipate remaining exactly the same.
Yeah, let me explain that question though. The county, if you agree to participate as a party to the local participation agreement, there won't be any county debt per se. All the debt will be issued by either the developer for the private development parts or the city. The county's obligation will simply be in the event that incremental revenues are generated, whatever percentage of those revenues that are generated that the county has agreed to pledge will be used for the project. And then the use of the increment will follow the priority set forth in the development agreement. So the county isn't being asked to issue any debt or take on any other responsibilities on this project other than to pledge certain its incremental revenues or certain percentage to the project. So I just want to clarify that particular point. And again, as Laura indicated, the use of those monies will first be used to reimburse the city for the garage, and then that are bond service payments. Then any cost to the city for the garage that maybe have not been included in the bond, and then the only developer will only get reimbursed after those costs are done. So it will be somewhat down the road before the developer starts receiving anything. So the developer actually has to then really, in a sense, is taking the risk on they have to get the financing in place and do their own financing for that, and has the risk for doing that. Again, the other skin in the game the developer has is they are conveying the property to the city for the garage. They're required to do the demolition of the YMCA and start certain plans. And they're also then required to dedicate the right of way. So in a sense, there is that skin in the game. The other thing is just as a practical matter, and I didn't want to, is that the amount of increment and the amount of public support for a project like this is definitely in line with other projects, especially when you have especially public structure parking. So I'm not sure you're going to find anywhere that a project of this magnitude in a downtown setting is being done without some public support to provide, especially the infrastructure improvements and especially the public garage.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Parsons. One other thing, just to make sure it's clear, and we have the document, but obviously people watching don't. So this TIF will be, if it goes through, based on property tax and occupational tax. Is that correct?
That is correct. The other unknown here is that the benefit that could come is once we decide how we're going to move forward on the state application, then there will be a request of the state. So any additional revenues that we can incorporate from the state will actually, in a sense, allow will be a benefit to the overall project, because it would it may allow the city and county obligations to terminate earlier than anticipated.
Okay, and then as far as state tips, those are based on if we can get people from other states to come to Frankfurt and spend money. Is that basically how a state tip works?
No, not really. The state TIF application, and we're going to have to make a decision whether which program we're going to go under relative to that, whether it's the real property tax or the mixed use tax. The state increment that we'll get, assuming they reimburse it, will be based upon the incremental taxes the project generates. The amount of state reimbursement does make a difference when they especially if it's the mixed use program we apply for. The amount of the state increment is going to be limited by the actual eligible cost that can be reimbursed from state increment, and also then the net new tax analysis of the project. So that's where you get into this concept of the state, when they review the project, will determine, depending on what project we're applying under, what program, the state will determine the net new tax impact. And that's where you run into issues of, is this all net new? How much of this is just transfer income and things like that? So that will determine a capped amount of the state participation. But once that amount is determined, state increment then will be a certain percentage of whatever the state decides of the actual state increment generated.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And following up on that, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong. If we did just go the real property tax route, if we don't go the mixed use route, the net new, we're just looking at net new property tax. Is that correct?
That is correct. And that doesn't require the consultant report. And basically you negotiate that directly with KIT, the staff. And so it's a much quicker process. So we need to make a decision whether or not which one is more likely to get approved. I think that your project is eligible under both programs. The issue is what is the best way to go at this particular point.
But if we just go the real property tax, that's pretty apparent that there's going to be new property tax because there's nothing there now.
That is correct. Yes.
There should be something eligible there.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Parsons, the way I'm understanding it is that for the county's ask, the county would not pay any revenues to the city unless there were revenues from the property. Is that correct? Is that the way I'm interpreting this agreement to move forward?
Yeah, basically on the local participation agreement. Now, this is not the development agreement, but the local participation agreement, that will be the documents, which will be the main document for the TIF issue, is that the county and city's pledge will be in the event that the development area generates incremental increases in taxes. That's what you're pledging. You're not pledging any existing revenues that are being generated today from that development area. It's just that in the event that these projects move forward and there's an incremental increase in taxes, the pledge will be from the incremental increase in taxes in the development area.
It would not be any monies that from our general fund that it would only be monies that new monies that are come from the property. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. Squire Blackburn, you had your hand up before. Squire Sebastian, I'll call on you next.
Yes, thank you so much, Judge. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Parsons, and City Manager, and Ms. Ross. I'm glad we finally got a document in front of us that we're moving. I know this project's been going on for a year, so I had several questions of my own, and I know the public's, a lot of people have asked me questions. One of the things Squire Tracy touched on a lot was the parking structure. We've been talking, I've been reading that it's a public public infrastructure, and how much of that is going to be owned by the city? How, if we got 300 spaces and 150 for the hotel, wouldn't we consider 150 spaces of that private?
I wouldn't consider it that way. Now, let me explain why. I don't, a lot of it depends upon what specific agreements you have with the hotel, but most of these situations is that the timing for the use of these facilities will work pretty well so for instance, and I haven't seen any of the agreements with the hotel at this particular point, but normally during the day, the use of need for the hotel parking is often down. And so it's at a time when the business uses might be more. So there might be a certain number of spaces that have to be available to the hotel, but I think it's still going to be considered public parking and a public parking lot and operated as such. The reason why we're doing taxable bonds as opposed to tax exempt financing is simply because there could be some obligations the hotel and otherwise that might make this not eligible for tax exempt financing. But I think the whole intent is that this would be available to the public with the understanding that the hotel may require a certain commitment of parking spaces at particular times that would have to be fulfilled. I don't believe there's supposed to be designated spaces in the garage for the hotel, but those are issues we have to work out still.
So yeah, from my understanding and the way that I'm looking at this, I'm hopeful that this will create a buzz. People will come, people will stay in the hotel. Those spots won't be empty. So I guess from your explanation, it's going to be part-time public, part-time private on those spaces. But anyway, that's something we'll get to down the road. I know Mr. Tracy spoke about site prep. You all covered that. I think with the agreement we're going to see in front of us next time will be the TIF, and you have talked about the fact that we don't know if we're going to go property and occupational tax or the real property tax. We're about a year, we're over a year into this, and I was hopeful that we would know more of which way we're going to go on that. But for us as the county, the state, you're going to have to make an application one way or the other. With the county, what direction are we wanting to go with that? Is it just going to be net new or the incremental increase? Or, we have to take into consideration, we have businesses that are down the street and we have this shiny new storefront area. We have a mixed use development. We might have some transfer of business to be in this spot. So would those taxes be included, or would that be considered new, even though it was in the county already and it's transferring into that location now? I just have a few questions about that.
Normally, the way these are done, Squire, is that the net new is you'll establish a baseline within the development area of what the revenues were. In this case, the baseline will be in calendar year 2020, and so the increment will be based upon any increases, and you would then, so when you get to activation, this is on the local, this is not the state. When you get to the local side, when you get to activation, there is, you will determine the total revenue. So for instance, say you activated this in 2023, the base was 2020. If you activated this in 2023, you would determine what is the total city and county occupational and real estate taxes that area is generated in 2023. You would then deduct from that baseline number. And then, so whatever that increment is, say you have pledged a certain percentage, it would just be that percentage of the difference between the 2023 number and the 2020 number, and that would be the increment pledged. In the event that there are businesses that might relocate in, yes, they would be counted as new revenues and things. And so there is a potential for that. In this type of project, I think it's less likely. If this was a larger scale development where you might have a lot of where you often run into this issue is that when you're building something new, more on the suburban side, and people are then moving out of the downtown to the suburban locations, sometimes you run into that where you have some transfers. I don't think you're going to have, with a project of this scale, that type of issue. You may have some smaller businesses that might do it, but I don't think it'd have a major impact on the increment.
Okay, so that's something I'd kind of like to see and worded in that agreement, that because when we have a development like this, we don't want to lose revenue because we have a transfer of business into the area. We'll be pledging taxes away that we've already gotten and been depending on. So hopefully that's something we can make sure that's in the development agreement, or the TIF agreement, moving forward.
Hey, Squire, I think one thing that makes this project a lot simpler is the fact that there's nothing down there now.
We're going from zero to whatever, and which is great. I understand that totally.
To $1, whatever your percentage is, you get to keep part of that. So that kind of made it simpler for me, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, I totally get that. But my thing too, Tommy, if say Poppy's up the road here wants to move to a shiny new storefront down there, and we're collecting taxes on them up here, and they move, we'll lose that revenue, and we'll be giving it to the developer for building us a parking garage that half the spaces are going to go to the hotel. So I don't want to be pessimistic. I don't want to be. I just want this to be a successful development, and I think the city and the former manager was really smart in trying to get some grant money involved, because I can tell you, I've spoke with some of the people that wrote the TIF laws here in Kentucky. I know the people that will be approving this at the budget level with the state. So I've been doing a lot of research on this, and I'm just glad we finally got something in front of us. I wish we'd have got it before the State Journal printed it, but I got it now, so I'm happy. Thank you.
All right, Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge. And I want to thank everybody who is participating in the conversation today. Glad that we actually have finally. I want to follow up on something that Squire Blackburn mentioned, because I just want to make sure that we're all clear about this. So I think the city manager mentioned, and maybe the attorney mentioned, that the baseline is going to be established on revenue from 2020, which was, as we all know, a definitely has the potential for us to kind of not have a sense of what the occupational tax would be for potentially what based on the shifting element of offices being moved into the downtown area from county space, as well as individuals starting to work from home. And we do know we have a rather large commuter workforce from surrounding counties. So that occupational tax, to me, is sort of like putting my finger on a piece of mercury. I can't pin it down exactly yet. So I think that would be something for us all to keep in mind. So has there been any thought to, or can that year be changed? I guess, is it locked in at 2020? I guess is my first question to follow up to something that Squire Blackburn had said.
It's not necessarily locked in, Squire. In the event that normally what happens when you create a TIF district, the base year is the year prior to the date of the ordinance creating the TIF district. So 2020 would normally be the year. If for some reason there is something that would make that not reasonable, or maybe throw out the numbers so it's not a good reflection of what the actual old revenue increment is, we could take a look at that. In this particular situation, most of this area most of the development area is already vacant. So I'm not sure that the COVID impact and things going to have anything, but that is something we can certainly look at in the event that's an issue.
Thank you. I definitely think it's something that we need to keep on our radar for that. And again, to follow up with a point that Squire Blackburn had made, should a existing business choose to relocate and potentially expand into this space, would that be considered new? And would those be considered new jobs? Counting the old jobs as well as the expansion?
First of all, if we don't put a specific provision in the local participation agreement that relates to existing jobs relocated into the TIF district, then yes, they would all be considered to be part of the new revenues. And that's something we can certainly take a look at. Clearly, if even if they relocated in and you excluded the existing jobs that might relocate, any expansion would almost always be considered as new revenues because that would be appropriate. Sometimes if we know that, most time that comes up when you have a major project you're dealing with where you know you're going to have some relocation, we can make provisions in the documents. In this particular time, we could probably make a general reference if the city and county want, just indicate that existing jobs that already exist at the time the TIF is created, if they relocate into the district, those are not included in. They wouldn't be included in the base number, but they also then wouldn't be included in the new revenue calculation. But that can be done.
Okay, and I think we should all be mindful of that as well. And I guess one more thing to follow up on Squire Blackburn's point before I launch into the number of questions that I have. If a new business locates within the community, whether it's in the city or county, but development, it is not included in this, correct?
If it's not doing business in the development area, it won't be impacted. That's correct. Now, for instance, you may have one business that has a couple locations. In that case, what we would hopefully will happen is that we would kind of require or get that business to file separate reporting on its development area location. If not, we have to create some type of way to prorate that.
Okay, thank you.
Squire, can I interrupt you just briefly on that? And I wanted to clarify that question. Occupational tax divisions governed by a separate ordinance, and the city and the county sever those out depending on where the business is located, where it moves into, who brought it in, et cetera. We tried to neutralize that for new businesses to treat them all to be split between city and county equally. But Mr. Parsons, just heads up, and I know Ms. Ross is very much aware of it. There is a separate ordinance that already controls businesses moving from one location to the other, county to city, city to county, et cetera, that we'll have to address if this goes forward for purposes of occupational tax sharing and or occupational tax allocation under a TIF district. And I apologize for the interruption.
No, I appreciate you weighing in because I hadn't heard that, and so that's where I was driving at. Thank you very much, Counselor. So I'll ask some of the questions that I have prepared. In this master development, it appears that this is only really the first step, that any financing would come later. And I think that topic has hit upon. This master development step. However, the master development, I have read it, it is late differences to tax income. So I'm not really sure why that is, because the development of the properties and the financing comes later. I'm not sure why the financing is so heavy in this document. So maybe someone could just address that.
Mr.
I don't quite understand the question relative to that. Can you, maybe I missed, you were breaking in and out a little bit there. So if I began to, normally
Sure.
What happens is the concept here is that there's a agreement between the parties as to who's supposed to do what and who's responsible for financing different parts of the project. In this case, the city is responsible for financing the public parking garage, and the developer then is responsible for providing any financing needed to do the Washington Street connection and also the private parts of the element, any obligation that they're responsible for directly, they're responsible for the financing of that. And those are separate financing. So that's why they're referenced that way, if that's what you were talking about. The closing of the financing will be done at the time when the city is moving forward on the parking garage. That's when they'll be issuing their debt and financing their part of the project. They would do. And then when the developer is ready to move forward on the construction of its private elements, to the extent they're not using their own equity to do some of the work initially, they'll be closing on their financing separately from that. And the city or the public entity won't have any obligation on the private financing, except for the amount of increment that might be pledged to the developer at some point in the future to reimburse the Washington Street costs.
Thank you. And ultimately, I guess where I'm going with that is the way I understand it, the county is mentioned in several locations within this master agreement as contributing to the financing. But we are not one of the county is not one of the parties in the agreement, in this master development agreement that we're discussing today. So I would presume that means the county is not bound by any of the elements within this master agreement. Is that correct?
Yeah, the county is not bound whatsoever. The county would only be bound to anything in the event you choose to participate as a party to the local participation agreement. So all the operational obligations that are in the development agreement are either on the city or are on the developer. And the county's referenced, not to exclude you necessarily, but the county is referenced only the fact that there could be a potential of some county participation to the increment.
Also, and I've tried to dissect just a few elements of this so that we don't belabor the entire meeting with this discussion. In looking at page 8, paragraph G, I don't see where the developer has an obligation to begin the construction of any element of of anything that it's responsible for until after the parking garage has been completed by the city.
That is correct that is correct as far as the construction of the private elements. The developer prior to the garage, though, is responsible for starting some of the site demolition of the YMCA. Developers required to convey title to the city for the property and actually start the process for doing the plan so that they will be in a position of building their elements after the garage is built. But you are correct. The developer is not required to start construction of the private elements until the parking garage is done.
So if we kind of stay on that train and we flip over to page 11, paragraph B, it states that the schedule for the completion of the parking garage shall meet the developer's needs and at least a 1-year extension. Hang on here. I'm trying to look at my notes. I don't want to bleed over into the wrong thing. Page 11, paragraph B. The schedule for the completion of the parking garage shall meet the developer's needs. So that's open upon completion of the private elements of the project, right? However, earlier in the agreement, the developer isn't obligated, as we just said, to even begin any of the private elements until the parking garage is completed. So how do the two align?
It just means that under this particular scenario, that just means that once the private parts are done, the parking garage has to be open. And it just is a general additional provision there that the parking garage needs to be open for the private elements. It doesn't change the schedule relative to that. The developer still isn't required to start the elements. So it shouldn't be any issues with compliance relative to that.
Okay. So I think in reading in here, and I just have a note that the city is supposed to own and operate the garage with the understanding that it will be operated to support the needs of the project. So I think Squire Tracy, Squire Blackburn, possibly Squire Muller mentioned the segregating of parking spaces for specific uses. So many for the hotel for their designated needs. So many for the mixed use development of condominium living. So many for business use. And it sort of begs the quandary of how many will actually truly be public spaces if they are designated 2-car spaces per condominium, so many for X number of shops, which we obviously are undetermined at this point. So I'm not really sure what the true public element is that the city is paying for in the parking garage if the spaces are going to be designated for a variety of purposes, because the folks who come and shop in the shops are going to need designated spaces for them. People who are living in the condos, they're going to need a space to park. People coming to the hotel, they don't always exit at 8 a.m. Some stay and have extended stays into the day. So I'm just trying to reconcile the understanding of the nature of what truly will be public in the public parking garage.
From my view, 100% will be public, even though you have some obligations that you're using, that certain businesses may have some rights relative to that. I think the operation of the garage and how that will be done will be a shared obligation and shared rights relative to that. That's my view. I think it's 100% public. Now, because a lot of times, even on the rights of the, when you're dealing with certain, you can actually tie these things together so that it qualifies as public parking, even though some businesses have some ability to use that at different times during the day and things. So, but again, that's how I view it. And I think that's very, very common, even in public parking garages all across the country that are built by, even with tax exempt debt, you have a shared situation where certain individuals or businesses have some rights to have the ability to park there, but they don't have a right to park there. They're probably with a hotel will have to probably have at least some, probably the hotel will require some, at least some rights to a certain amount of spaces, not necessarily designated spaces from the garage, but I treat it as 100% public.
Isn't it important? I'm sorry that I didn't ask for permission, but I think it's important for the grant application that this be a public transit. Is that right? So it has to be open to the public for the purposes of the grant application.
Laura, you want to answer that, and then we'll move back to Squire Sebastian.
Thank you.
Yes, Squire, it for purposes of the grant, we do have to have that public element, and per application, if they actually grant the grant, that means that they are satisfied with that as an element of the garage.
Okay, Squire Sebastian, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Judge. So in reading this, I noticed that anticipated financing is through the issuance of bonds by the city. And it is anticipated that the bonds will be taxable and that they will, I guess, constitute really a general obligation debt of the city, which means that the city is going to be on the hook, right, for the payments, regardless of whether this incremental revenue is sufficient to meet the payments. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's general obligation debt anticipated. So regardless of whether the incremental taxes are there, the city will be on the hook for the debt.
Okay, thank you. And then the city does have, and I'm just trying to make sure I'm reading it and understanding it correctly. The city does have priority in the receipt of incremental revenues. And I think Solicitor Ross covered this early in the presentation. The city does have priority in the receipt of the incremental revenues for the payments of its expenses related to the garage. But it's going to remain responsible, I think, based on my last question, for the payment, even if the incremental revenues are not there. Is that correct? For the
That is
overall?
correct. That is correct. So the plan is that the incremental taxes should pay plus the transit center grant should be sufficient to cover that. But in the event it doesn't, the city's general fund and general taxing authority will be responsible for any shortfall.
And so if, as this progresses to the second agreement where the county is going to be asked to participate, which this agreement it's not a party of, if the county does, I guess, agree to devote incremental revenues to the project, this will be first and foremost assisting in, I guess, making debt payments on the bonds issued by the city. Is that correct?
Yeah, the increment will be pledged to these costs. That's correct. Again, the county will not be obligated on any of the debt, but the county, in the event you pledge revenues, the priority for the use of the increment will be the same as set forth in this agreement.
Okay, I think I will just hang on to any other questions I have and let others ask theirs. Thank you all very much.
Solicitor Ross, you've been in Frankfurt long enough. You remember when we had a parking garage in a civic center just a few years ago, and you remember that when events occurred either at the hotel or at the civic center, you pulled in the parking garage, and even though there were signs that said reserved for hotel, the whole parking garage was totally full of people parking in there going to either an event at the hotel, sometimes at both places, or the convention center. Is that the way you see this type of parking structure? Very similar to the way that was set up as this gets built?
Yes, Judge. I do believe that's the way that this will be. We'll have spaces available for the hotel just as it was in the past when we had the full development down there that was there previously. But these will be public spots, and you'll have people using them for all a number of and variety of uses as they frequent those establishments within the development area, the hotel, and whatever surrounding areas they might be using, in addition to whatever needs people might have if they're parking for the transit center.
And there will be, as part of the development, it is designed that there will be on-street parking as well.
I believe that's right. Yes, we anticipate on-street parking as well.
Okay, thank you. Squire Booth.
Thank you, Judge. I just wonder if the county, if the agreement and the application for federal funds require that the county be involved, because I can't see why the city wants the county to be in this agreement in the first place. There's no money involved unless there's, of course, it's a fallback, a fail-safe, but still, is that a condition of approval for any outside help that the county be involved in this master agreement?
Mr. Parsons?
Yeah, I don't believe there's any obligation as far as the grant goes on the transit center that the county be a party to the master development agreement. And so as a result of the fact that the parties that have obligations under the agreement are really the city and the developer on this particular situation. That's why the county's not a party here. The only participation by the county in the event you choose to participate would be to pledge your incremental revenues to the TIF district to be used as we've talked about today. So there will be a separate agreement, but that agreement will be between the city, the county, the agency, called the local participation agreement, and that will be the pledge of the city and county tax revenues to the TIF district.
I see.
So just to kind of follow up on that, Squire, let's all remember that everybody in this community, all businesses, all households pay a county tax. Whether you live in the city or you live in the county, you still are paying a county tax. So revenues from this development will help the county. So all the more reason we would want to be part of doing things that would help grow our base as well. So that's just the first phase of it. The second phase would fall back into the monies that come about from tourism, monies that come about from people moving in to the area. So there's a lot of secondary monies that would be available that would help increase our tax base as well. With that being said, Squire Muller, you're up.
Thank you, Judge. Mayor Wilkerson, quick question for you. Obviously we're hopefully coming out of a pandemic per se, and I know a lot of the numbers ran previously per TIF. I keep hearing occupational tax, and that's been a hot topic for us at the fiscal court, and I'm sure the city as far as what's going to happen, coming out of this. Has there been any current studies done post COVID per se, as far as monies generated? Maybe not. Thank you.
There has been the same group, Commonwealth Economics, who did the first study. They redid it to reflect what was mainly to reflect the reduced hotel investment. But I think any of these numbers that come out that are projected, that's exactly what they are. They're just projections. And but the last, when we're talking about the local participation agreement, and I'm going back to Squire Blackburn's question, the county and the city would both pledge occupational and property tax. And in the first year estimates that I last saw, the new increase in property and occupational tax for the county was somewhere in the neighborhood of $175,000. Now, I wouldn't, we know that that's not going to be exactly right. It'll be something though. And so that's what we're suggesting is we both pledge whatever percentage of that new revenue toward the cost of building the garage. So, but to answer your question, there hasn't been anything to reflect what the new occupational tax would be. I do think the property tax is something that would be more reliable to look at, because we know that what those rates are, and once something gets built, we can more easily predict what that number would be.
Okay, thank you. Then one other, I noticed there's a question asked in the little chat room. Do you all anticipate charging for public parking for the structure, or has that been talked about at all? And if so, I guess where would that money go, and who would run it if you're going that direction? Thank you.
Ms. Ross or Mr. Parsons?
Well, I could say I think it has been discussed. I don't think that that's the plan. And if we did, because I don't think that there's a market for that in Frankfurt right now, for one. But additionally, I think if we did, it's my understanding, and Ms. Ross, please correct me, if we did charge because of the transit grant, any revenue would go toward, it'd have to stay in the transit area. Is that correct?
Having trouble with my mute button. There we go. Yes, Mayor, that's correct. And I'd also like to remind everybody, the city is actually in the middle of looking at a parking study that will give us some ideas about public parking and what types of charges, if any, the public is willing to undertake. So all of that will be things that we'll be looking at in serious detail as we go forward.
Okay. And again, thank you everybody for presenting to us today. Thank you.
Squire Tracy.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Ross, quick question. In the contract between the state and the developer, in that contract, it had an obligation as far as the parking structure that there were to be 150 spaces built for the hotel. Is that accurate?
That is my understanding.
Covered spaces for the hotel,
Yes.
correct?
Yes,
150.
that's my understanding per lease agreement that was initially with the state.
Okay. And in order to even qualify to bid on the property, the developer knew that the parking structure, 150 of those spaces were dedicated to the hotel. They had to build 150 for the hotel. Is that correct?
I won't speak to what the developer was aware of when they signed the
No,
agreement. I don't have it
in the
front of me.
contract. I'm talking about the contract the state has that everybody's got a copy of. It references that 150 covered spaces are to be dedicated to the hotel, correct?
Yes, that's absolutely right.
Okay. Sometime back, I can't remember when, I know it's been so long ago, but we had Miss Smith, Katie Smith, that works for the Economic Development Cabinet. And I posed that question to her. If they are 150 spaces dedicated to the hotel, which we all know they are because it's per the contract, are they considered public spaces? She indicated no. So it appears, and it also appears that opinions have changed on this call here, that those dedicated spaces, that's going to be interesting to see, because everybody it seems they're varying on whether they're public or whether dedicated to the hotel. Has anyone spoken to the owners of the hotel from your all's group that said, hey, we're going to build these spaces, but they're not going to be dedicated to you guys, because if somebody wants to pull in them, they can pull in them and use them? Has anyone spoken to the hotel about this?
We've had several conversations with Mr. Allen, Mr. Turner along the same route. And I believe next week we have a meeting with all of those to have this conversation one more time to see if we can come to some term that's agreeable to everybody.
The other thing I'd like to point out on that, if I could, relative to the way the state might look at this for the TIF side, because their definitions and they are somewhat fluid. But for instance, say that they don't believe that the 150 spaces qualify for public. There's still the other part of the garage, so they can allocate a portion of their cost of the garage as reimbursement for TIF increment anyway. And it's probably, in that number, is still going to be probably as much as we probably might be able to get from the state anyway on that. So I'm not concerned about that issue, because there's other costs that under the TIF side that are clearly going to be eligible for state participation as we move forward, even if they may discount a portion of the garage costs relative to that, because and so I think we're going to be good relative to that situation.
Yeah, I'm just asking for clarity. Like I said, opinions have changed as this conversations went on.
Yeah,
so
I've always believed that this qualifies as public parking. Now, whether the state will look at it the same way when they review the state application, that's a different issue and things. But even if they do discount a portion of it because of the garage hotel agreement, I still think a substantial amount of the public infrastructure that we're going to show the state is going to qualify for state participation.
Okay. And then next question, and maybe this goes to Tommy. Does the Y still have a contract as far as a lease? And if so, are they going to forfeit that? Are they going to walk? Are they close? What's the plans with the YMCA?
So that is actually between the Y and the developer. So I think we would have to defer to the developer to see where they are in that process with the YMCA.
So is it accurate to say that what happens if the Y says we're just going to stay where we're at? I guess that's what where are we at? I mean, again, it seems like there's a lot of stuff as far as the document that talks about demolition and the YMCA building and so forth. So I'm just trying to figure out, as far as a big piece, the big picture, where we are with the YMCA and what their plans are, and what happens if they say we can't do this or do that. Do they stay where they're at?
There we go. Having trouble.
Squire, the agreement between the developer and the YMCA, I'm not sure that we're privy to all the information. I believe in the agreement that the developer owns the property that the YMCA sits on, and if they even do, if the YMCA vacates that building or ceases to exist in that building, then it automatically reverts to the developer for him to do what he wants. I know that he is indicated that if the Y wants to move from there and build a new site, that he has got property available for them in this development, but that's a conversation between the Y and the developer. And I'm not sure how much that I really know about that to be able to espouse.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I don't see any other questions. And I want to thank our panel this morning, Solicitor Ross, City Manager Russell, Mayor Wilkerson, Mr. Parsons. Very enlightening. And we know that the next step, you all will be back to us in the near future to talk about the next step, which will be incremental financing and and what percentage and how to go about doing that. So if there are no other questions, which I don't see, I want to thank all of you for being here this morning. Thank you for the informational update. I'm sure the general public has a better understanding, and that's great. And our board has a better understanding, and that's great as well. So thank you all. We appreciate it, and we'll be seeing you in the near future. Thank you very much. Okay. We have a very special guest, Tish Shade, who is the new president of the Frankfort Area Chamber of Commerce. Tish, I know that you've got a lot of valuable information on about parcel B and C. You have heard about that as you've come in, and this is an opportunity to welcome you and thank you for coming into our community and helping our businesses grow. And we'll give you the floor just to introduce yourself and talk a bit about your vision and what's going to be happening with the chamber. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate that. So my vision just for the chamber is to help grow the community, just like everybody else in my position before me. We want to grow the community. We want to bring everybody together. As we spoke on our video that you did with me, and thank you for that. Our new hashtag is We Are Better Together. That's going to be our hashtag for the year and maybe forever, because we have a vision to bring everybody together. That's our job. That's our mission. We want to grow the community, and we want everybody to know that we're better together. There's so many new things that we're going to be rolling out at the chamber just when we can start opening up, when the governor lets us start opening up a little bit more. And one of the new things that we're doing is a lunch bunch. It's going to be, we're going to have our very first one on May 3rd. They're all going to be on Mondays. So every Monday, look at our Facebook page and you'll find out where we're going to be meeting. This one, our very first one will be at Mamie Manchita's. It'll be May 3rd again at 11:30. So I invite you, Judge Wells, and all the squires and everybody on the call. If you would like to join us, we would love to have you and support one of our local businesses. So every Monday, we will be going to a different local restaurant to help them survive this crisis. And hopefully by bringing, the crowds and the people and being together will help them stay in business. So that's one of our big initiatives that we're rolling out. We're going to start a new ambassador program. We will continue with our golf tournament. We've already got it set for September 24th, just because we've had to move it from the summer just back a little bit more. We're going to do a farm to city banquet that'll look a little bit different this year because of COVID, but it'll be October 7th. And then in October, we're also going to do something new. It'll be brand new. It'll be Pink on the Patio to help breast cancer survivors. And it'll be a wine tasting, and everybody will dress in pink, and we'll have more information coming on that as soon as we get our committee together and doing stuff like that. So I came from Texas for a year, and I was in Colorado the last 30 years. I have a lot of chamber background. I have passion for the city that I live in, and I'm very excited to be here. We have a great city of Frankfort, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Thank you. Thank you. And once again, welcome. And I open the floor up to any of the squires for questions. Squire Muller.
No questions. As a past chair of the Chamber of Commerce in Frankfort, I just want to say welcome. And if we can help you guys with anything, feel free to just let us know.
Great, thank you. And I'll put my email in the chat, so that I would love for you to all reach out to me and we can have a one-on-one, so I know who you are and what you stand for. And and know who to come to when I need things. I'm just learning. I'm in week 5 of my job, so I'm happy to learn and get to know everybody.
Okay, Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge. And I want to echo, Tish, what Squire Muller said, but just want to welcome you to the community. I think you have certainly a blank canvas here in our community. Your predecessor did an absolutely fantastic job in promoting our community, and I have no doubt that you will also be up to the task as she was. So welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Seeing no one else, Squire Muller, we'll look forward to the event where you're going to be in pink. I know that you look very good in pink, so you and Squire Moore can compete for the cutest in pink. So we look forward to that event. Tish Shea, thank you very much, and welcome to Frankfort. And we're glad you're here, and we wish you all the best. Come back anytime, any updates, anything that you want to announce, just let us know, and we're right there with you, because promoting our businesses, supporting our businesses should be all of our goal, all of us, the same goal. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Judge Wells.
Thanks. Okay, the next item on the agenda is our audit, our 2019-2020 audit. Mr. McClavick from the Charles T. Mitchell Company. Welcome, Mr. McClavick.
Thank you. Appreciate y'all having me. You all should have a copy, hopefully, in front of you. I think y'all have had it for a while. Susan would have given it to you. One thing that I always say at the very beginning is that we've luckily, we've issued a clean opinion. Didn't make any adjustments to your books. As you know, Susan does a great job. So that's always a good thing. That's the main thing that as magistrates and the county judge executive should want to know, is whether we've issued a clean opinion. And we did do that. If you want to open up, the main financial statement really is just the 3 main pages, which is called the statement of receipts, disbursements, and changes in fund balances. And I won't go through all these numbers here. But obviously the biggest fund that you have is the general fund, which is the first column on page 6. You'll see total receipts of 15.6 million and total disbursements of 8.5. You'll see your transfers of 5.7, and you'll notice if you look at the transfers from other funds, a line above, you can see where all that went. And again, you all have approved all these. And basically, what I'm basically telling you is what Susan has presented to you last fall. No changes. We do add the Public Properties Corporation Fund, which is the last column on page 8. We add that because you all really don't have any control over that. That's basically money that goes into an account and pays the debt on the courthouse. And then you also have the Jail Commissary Fund on page 8, which you don't really have any control over, but that's reported as an unbudgeted fund. And basically all we show is income coming in and income going out. We do audit that, obviously. We're required to, as the state fiscal court audit guide. You notice on page 8, want to discuss the total funds. The total revenues receipts for this year, the last column on page 8, are 29.2 million. Last year for 6/30/19, that was 28.7. You did add a couple of new funds this year just to break out certain revenues from the county clerk, the county sheriff, and the transient tax fund. You'll see those on page 7. Those were just actually used to be grouped in general fund, but I believe you all wanted those broken out a little bit better. And Susan has done that, and they're presented to you here. On page 8 again, total disbursements were almost 27.9 this year. They were 27.7 the prior year. Your net income this year was almost 1.4 million. That's basically the increase in cash. And your total fund balance, again, about the 4th line from the bottom on the last column on page 8, fund balance beginning, which is basically July 1st cash, that you all had available, 8.2, add the 1.4 in from the year, and you have $9.6 million remaining, as opposed to, again, 8.2 the year before. This year was in the accounting world what we call a single audit. That's because you all had so much in CARES money that was reported. Again, you all know that. That's what you all requested and we're going to spend. On page 27 starts your budgets. Again, Susan has presented these to you. What you have in front of you is just basically Susan's reports with my report on top of it. You all can go through those. You'll see the variances. And again, those variances were already reported to you. We do audit those. And on page 10 starts the notes to the financial statements. And basically, those notes are basically just going over and adding more information to the financial statements that are presented to you. That's really all I have. And I know you all may have some questions, or if y'all do, but I do want to thank Susan and the staff at the jail commissary. Everybody was like I would expect, great to work with, and information was provided timely when we needed it. And we're presenting in April, finished this back in February, and quite honestly, the biggest delay was we were waiting on the federal government to tell how we were to report the CARES money. We waited basically 3 months. There was no guidance. So once we finally got that, we basically wrapped it up at the very end. And then the state auditor reviews all the work papers and the report. And then we got on the agenda. So does anybody have any questions?
Squire Sebastian, you're first.
Thank you, Judge, and Mr. McClovic. Thank you for being with us today to go over what I was happy to read last night is a clean audit.
Yeah.
I'm always happy when I see that, and no notes in the back. I did want to ask, in looking at page 8, where we have a list of some unbudgeted funds.
Yeah.
How wide is this net cast for unbudgeted funds? Is it things that have to come through our treasurer's office? Like, for example, there are some programs in county government. One that I always think of around Christmas is the annual toy drive that the fire department does. Is there a way does that get audited, those kind of programs as well?
No, these unbudgeted funds, these are required by the state auditor to be put here so they're presented, because they are, and I say this honestly, technically under the fiscal court, even though Susan doesn't audit, the jailer does. Right. Susan does not go through the jail commissary. And I will say this, Susan looks at what they present. She does a really good job of that and asks questions, but you don't budget for that at all. And the same thing with the courthouse fund, which is the better way of saying it. You all don't even see that bank account, like as a fiscal court. So you have no control over that. But these are just two funds that are under your guise, I would say. The other remaining funds are the ones that you actually have physically control over those. But the state auditor wants, but for transparency, wants these presented in this format.
Okay, I just wasn't sure because, when we have tangential things that are funds are being raised and the county's name is being used, it just makes sense again for transparency. Sure. Key word, and I think a key word for this court to make sure that we know how those funds are being utilized for the betterment of the community, and also being able to show a clear picture to the community that when they're donating funds for whatever it may be, how they're being used back to support the community. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Squire Muller.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. McClovic, as always, it's a pleasure, and thank you for all your hard work. I'll let you off the hook for right now. Is Susan on, Judge? Is Susan with us today?
Yeah, she's with us.
Okay, Susan, kind of echoing what Mr. McClovic said, thank you for getting all this together and everything you do. 2 questions for you, I believe. On page 21, it talks about the tax abatements. Is that something, I guess, that you keep up with? Because in there it says, if if they don't, hold their end of the bargain, it's a no-go? I mean, I'm just wanting to make sure I understand how all that works.
That's a good question, Squire Muller. We are, this was a fairly new requirement, I believe. This is our third year disclosing this in the audits.
Yep.
So, and it's a good idea to do so because we lose track of some of these agreements where we are participating in, encouraging a business to either locate here or expand their operations by giving up part of our occupational tax. To date, we have not, since we've been reporting for any of the active programs, we have not had to give per se, turn any money back over. Our agreements that we have in place now are ones where we are in a rebate situation as opposed to a retention situation. At least that's how they're supposed to be working, so that those businesses that are collecting from their employees these occupational taxes, as they're collecting them, they are turning them over to the county. Now, at some point in time, if those businesses need to exercise the county portion of the agreement of their tax abatement program, if they need to exercise the local portion, which would be in addition to the state portion. So they meet the state portion first, and that's monitored at economic development. And then should they file to exercise local abatement, we would be working very closely through our disclosures and our confidentiality agreements with the state to assure that they've met their obligation there. And they would also have to provide documentation of the employees in the program that are qualified to receive that a rebate of those funds.
Okay, thank you. Squire Sebastian, before I ask my next one, do you have something to add to that question, or can I ask my next question first?
Why don't you go ahead, Squire Muller?
Okay. All righty. Susan, my other one is page 23. It looks like we've been owed some money from RJ Industries for a number of years. Could you just kind of touch on that one a little bit?
Boy, that's an old one. Rick is here too. He might be able to recollect with me. I continue to disclose it because I've never written it off. If you owe, you owe. But the as I sort of recall, I don't even know that I do recall. There was some sort of program for that business to expand or develop, and then or maybe there was a lease agreement that they didn't fulfill. We paid off a note.
There was a
because it was in our name.
There was, I believe, money borrowed for equipment.
Okay.
And they had been paying that back. And then when they went out of business, or it had stopped, I believe they had stopped. This is quite a long time ago. They had stopped making payments and then went out of business. And if I'm not mistaken, that note, I want to say, was kind of through the Capital Community Economic Development, was kind of organized, getting grant funds for that given to them. And I'm speaking from a long time ago. And then, like I said, they stopped paying, and that remains, quote, on the books. Basically, the books are in Susan's spreadsheet, basically, and how that'll affect the accounting. If you said, why do we still have that in here? Basically nothing. It's just basically $6,000 that you're not going to get back that was signed on a note. And Rick can probably maybe discuss more. And then you all, again, the only thing that's going to change is that, one, you're not going to get the money, and two, it'll be removed from the audit report next year. That's really it.
Right. And that's I appreciate that, Greg. That's one of the things I was thinking. Can we just clean it up and, take the write-off? I don't know how that works legally, Can we take the write-off on next year's taxes?
Squire Muller, I was just going to.
Hold on, Squire Sebastian. Hold on, if you would. I think Rick needs to say something at this point from the legal standpoint, because I believe there is a suit out there. Isn't that correct, Mr. Sparks?
We had attempted to collect some years back, y'all, and I apologize for not having that handy on that question. Wood initiated a claim, et cetera, with no success. It's a small amount. We perfected our claim, tried to get the money, $6,000. It's still floating. We kept it on the books in the event that it did come in. This was one of the economic development packages that the county participated in historically. Some work, some don't. This one didn't. It's up to you all if you're going to just let it ride and take it off the books. It's not, I don't want to ever say free money, but if you get the money in and it comes to fruition, okay, there was liquidation, there's assets, et cetera, that was tried to be recovered. It still remains out there for good reason. The county never forgave the obligation with the idea that it's being pursued. As you know, the amount is what it is. There we are. It's still on the books. It still claims as a debt in anticipation of someday hopefully recover it.
Okay. Squire Sebastian, thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Judge. And I had a tab flipped over, so I appreciate Squire Muller. This was my other question that I had. The way I understand the Kentucky Constitution, a governmental entity cannot forgive a debt. And I don't know how we have to footnote this, but I think we have to show this until it is paid. We cannot absolve a debt that is owed to us. As my understanding, when I was in state government, I was told that routinely.
I'm not sure that's exactly correct, Squire, but I'd be glad to take a look at it. We forgive debts. We forget debts. We forgive debts all the time.
I would love to look at that with you because I've been told that.
I'll take a look. I'll take a look at it, Squire. I think that's my role to take a look at. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate the input.
Sure. No, happy to help in any way. Just, I don't necessarily know if we can just completely just write this off. And it sounds like there has been an attempt to collect one and or multiple times through assets, because my presumption is this company is still in business somewhere, New York, New Jersey, somewhere. I know it's a small amount to them, but every dollar, as we've been talking about today, is critical to the development of our community. So thank you very much.
All right. Any other questions?
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other questions? Seeing no other questions, Mr. McClovick, thank you for your great service. Thanks to the Charles T. Mitchell Company. It's a great company. We are honored to have you do our audits, and you do a fantastic job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Y'all have a good day.
And last but not least, go Irish, right?
That's right.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. McClovick.
All right, thank you.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is authorization for approval of minutes from our regular meeting of April 1st. Are there any questions or concerns or discussion about our minutes? Seeing none, the next item on the agenda is authorization to receive the Franklin County Extension District's fiscal year 2021-2022 budget. And Keenan Bishop is doing a public service obligation today, delivering meals. Thank you, Keenan, for doing that. And we have Adam Leonberger here to answer any questions, because this is just to receive the Extension's office budget. Leon, welcome. Thank you. And I love your picture with the tulips. I believe those were tulips that I saw. Also,
snowdrops, actually.
They were what?
Snowdrops.
Oh, okay. From my distance, it looked like tulips, but they were beautiful flowers, whatever. Okay. Thank you for clarification. Are there any questions concerning the receiving of the Extension District's fiscal year budget? Squire Muller.
Thank you, Judge. No questions. Just wanted to thank Adam for everything the Extension does for our community. And honestly, if I knew he was going to be on here today, I would have gotten a really good question for him. But yeah, we'll get you next time, buddy.
Thank you.
I can see Adam wiping the sweat from his brow and thanking you, Squire Muller, for not putting him under the gun. Adam, welcome, and I'm glad you're here. Seeing no other questions, we have received your budget, and we, once again, as Squire Muller said, we really appreciate what you do for our community, what the Extension Office does.
We're happy to help. Thank you.
Thanks to Keenan and all the staff for their hard work. The next item on the agenda is the second reading and approval of an ordinance amending the table of special ordinances, section 1, zoning map changes to the Franklin County Code of Ordinances for a 10.166 acre property identified as PVA map number 108-0000, located at 827 Snavely Road. From rural RR to Ag AG. And Robert is not here today, and Ben Judah is here to answer any questions for this second reading of this zone change. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Any questions on this second reading? Okay, Squire Tracy.
Thanks, Judge. Thanks, Ben. Ben, can you tell me if anyone was there to oppose?
For this particular zone change, there was nobody in opposition.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, let's move to the next one. Mr. Judah, this is the second reading and approval of an ordinance amending the table of special ordinances, section 1 from the zoning map for a 203.59 acre property identified as PVA map number 046. Et cetera, located on Harvey Land Road from rural residential RR to agricultural district AG. Mr. Judah, and any questions for Mr. Judah on this second reading? Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Judah, appreciate you being with us today because this relates directly to you. I'm looking at the minutes from, I guess, the Planning Commission, and it if you'll go to the actual minutes, the third paragraph from the bottom, the final statement, it seems like there is some text missing there where you are talking about an adjoining property owner. If you'll read that last sentence there.
Are you talking about the minutes from the March 11th meeting or the February meeting? This item was tabled and it was in both meetings.
Yeah, this is the ones that are provided in this packet are February 11th.
February 11th, okay.
So I'm not sure, we didn't get any March minutes. We just got February 11 minutes. And the statement reads, Mr. Judah stated that Mr. Bishop felt there would be an increase in the number of residents on the site and that what? And it's been a while back, so I don't know if you recall.
I don't remember the exact words, but there was an adjacent property owner that did have some concerns that the zone change would allow for more residents to be built on the subject property. However, during that meeting, there was no testimony to that effect that any new residences are proposed.
Okay, I wasn't sure because that was what this paragraph was in reference to, the statements made by the adjoining property owner. And since it's not clear what was conveyed, the full range of what was conveyed there. So that was just the point of my question. And you said that possibly the comments were that there were no additional properties to be developed, right?
No new residences to be proposed at this time. That was one of the concerns that the neighbor had, but the property owner states that that is not the intention.
Okay, thank you. That clears this up. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Muller.
Thank you, Judge. I believe this is in Squire Moore's district. Squire Moore, you have anybody talk to you, anything negative about this, or are we good here?
I had one person call me and answer his questions until he was good with it.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure.
I believe we asked him that on the first reading, so so thank you. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Mr. Judah, the next item, we've tabled it. That's item 6, and that will be on our April 28th meeting. So Mr. Judah, that's all for you right now. Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you. You're welcome.
The next item on the agenda is authorization to advertise for a request for proposal for broadband feasibility study. And oh my goodness, do we need this? Miss Ann, thank you. And you've been in contact with Bluegrass Ad and working through this. And so explain to everybody what this is going to be about.
Yes, thank you, Judge. Good morning, everyone. One of the course, one of the big lessons we've learned over the past year is the importance of affordable and reliable internet to our residences, our businesses, and of course, our students. So much so that broadband initiatives are mentioned at every level of the Recovery Act. So there are funding sources available at federal, the state, and our local direct funding that mention broadband initiatives specifically. One of the things that's being recommended, the state's working on an overall broadband initiative and doing the Kentucky speed test. And I'd also asked Andrew to post that for us while we're discussing this. What the feasibility study will do is to begin with that information that comes from the Kentucky Broadband Initiative, but also to drill down further into exactly what Franklin County has, what our assets are, what our coverage is like, the reliability of the coverage, and start to put together a large picture for us, including information on what a project might look like, different options, what the costs of those options would be, who our stakeholders are, the different funding sources that we could take advantage of to put together a project to provide reliable internet service to folks in the unincorporated areas of Franklin County. Now, Bluegrass Ad has let me know that they've provided information that based on what other counties are seeing, these feasibility studies are based on a certain amount per household on top of a base amount. So their suggestion is that Franklin County's feasibility study should not exceed $7,500. So that's what I'm asking authorization to publish an RFP. I'm working on that with Robert at this time to make it specific for Franklin County, to get that that ad out there so that we can begin and get this information so that we can put together a broadband project for Franklin County. This information will help us in our leverage to apply for not just the funding sources from the state and from our own recovery funds, but the FCC will have a fund initiative for broadband, as well as some of the other federal agencies. So this, the company will also help us identify all those sources and help us put together a roadmap for how we get to a broadband project for Franklin County.
And last week or week before last, the magistrates and myself attended a conference. As part of that, there was a section talking about broadband, and they recommended that we do this. This is should be the first step in our process to figure out what we can do to enhance our broadband coverage in our community. That was the first step. The second part of this is that we also learned that the state has appropriated, I believe, close to $300 million, the legislators did, and however, to get those monies, we have to match. So if we put up $1 million, we would get $1 million. And and you can verify this, but I believe NACO and CAICO are saying now that they have worked it out where you normally can't use federal monies with federal monies as a matching, and that they're getting this worked out where the ARPA monies could be used to as matching monies for the state money. Is that what you're hearing as well?
That's the way that it's looking at this point. The guidance still has not come down from Treasury that's specific enough yet to let us know, but because that was the allowance that was made with the CARES funds, there is the expectation that we would be able to use our direct funds as match for the other federal funds that were received by the Commonwealth or at the federal level. So there is such a desire to see these broadband initiatives go forward that the Treasury is expected to be very flexible on allowing us to do that. One other thing I wanted to mention while we have the Kentucky broadband page displayed is that one thing we need is for more people out in the unincorporated areas to conduct this speed test. If you would please promote this throughout the different districts. If folks don't have access to broadband at all, if they can have someone input their address or partial address and indicate that they don't have access to broadband, that's just as valuable as someone running the speed test on what they've got. So we need as much information as possible going into this feasibility study. It will help whatever firm we choose to give us a better picture of Franklin County.
Andrew, I know that we put this on our website a while back. Will you bring that back up and make sure it's at the top of our website and with an attention to people to please fill out the survey?
Yes, Judge.
Thank you. Squire Muller, you were first.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Ann. Two things. Hey, Andrew, kind of echoing what the judge just said, is this something you could do on social media too? As far as, you know, that's one of the things we talk about is how to get in touch with people in the community. I was wondering if it's something that you could post on the fiscal court page and we could share to maybe get a little bit more energy going. And then also, and it says here, the financial cost is $500 for the State Journal. What other ways are we looking at getting this RFP out? Because, you know, I think the State Journal is fine, but I think to get it on a broader scale, what other avenues will this be put on? Thank you.
Of course, we will be advertising in the State Journal, but we'll also have it on our website, and I can do outreach through the Bluegrass ad to contact the firms that they know that conduct these types of feasibility studies to let them know that we have an RFP available.
And we did some social media postings back, I don't know, Ann, a month or so ago, but we can definitely do some more, and I'll be glad to help Ann however necessary.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Ann.
Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge, and I want to thank our grants administrator for working on this for us. This resolution states that several counties have begun feasibility studies within the Bluegrass Area Development District. Do we know which ones of those? I think there's 17 counties in the Bluegrass Area. Do we know if any of the counties have progressed beyond issuing an RFP, that are actually doing anything with the work yet, or are they still in the process of issuing the RFPs?
I don't have a specific list. I know that Scott County was definitely one of those working on a feasibility study. One of the examples I got was actually from Lincoln County, and they had actually begun this back in 2020 because they had already, even before the ARPA funds were announced, because they had already had such impact from the pandemic, because a lot more of their folks did not have access to internet. So they had started that through some existing grant fund sources, and we're trying to, begin that process. So I think this is something that every county is looking at, especially because it's such a focus of all these Recovery Act funds. It's mentioned so specifically that this is an opportunity for us, as well as all the other counties, to move more in that direction.
And I don't know who can speak to this, but do we know how the Education and Workforce Cabinet speed test is being implemented here in Franklin County?
As far as I know, it's the Kentucky Broadband Initiative is on their website, the speed test, and I'm not sure about what the other areas where their education is doing something different.
I just know in the abstract it talks, in the documents, it talks about the Education and Workforce Cabinet kind of being.
They're in charge of the initiative, the Kentucky
Right.
Broadband Initiative. Yes.
Right. So I just didn't know if it was the cabinet or if it was COT or any other entity, if they had hired a contractor, and how that speed test actually was being implemented. But I'll see if I can reach out on that.
I believe the firm working with the Kentucky Broadband Initiative is a firm called Geo Partners.
Okay, thank you. I'll check on that. Do we know how the speed test results will be incorporated, I guess, into the guiding factors of how we will choose collaborative partners here to ensure that there's full coverage in the county?
I think that's a good starting place. What our feasibility study will show, it will take that speed test results and identify existing stakeholders, but also it will reach out to other stakeholders, other providers of the utility, and determine which providers are willing to engage and become partners with us, what they might be able to provide to the project. So it will go, it'll take that as beginning steps, but it'll go a lot farther than that for our feasibility study to identify more providers, more stakeholders, and how we get a roadmap to a project.
Okay. And do you know, in our packet, we received a map with some demographics. What was the source of the map? And
that is, I'm sorry, that's from Geo Partners for the Kentucky Broadband Initiative. And that's the information that they have thus far on Franklin County. And that through the Bluegrass ad, they had said, yes, we have pretty good input from within the city limits and good coverage, but we actually need more people out in the unincorporated areas to weigh in on and do the speed test so that we get even better information, because we don't know if this is the full picture. This is just what they have to date.
Sure. And I guess one final thing, I guess the Bluegrass Area Development District has a boilerplate RFP that they're using for this. Is there any way that you could just forward that on just so I could incorporate that into this file for my records, please?
They actually don't have a template. What they sent me was examples of what some of the other counties have used. And that's why Robert and I will be working to craft something that's specific to Franklin County's need.
Okay, and we'll ultimately get to see, just for record keeping for me, we'll get to see that right before it hits the street? Or
absolutely.
Will it that hits the street first?
No, I'd be happy to provide that.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much. Appreciate all your work on this.
Andrew, you just did a download, didn't you? Did I just see on that? Will you explain what you got back? Can you explain that information? I was looking at that as Ann was talking.
Yeah, so basically I was just kind of going through the process of, doing the test. It's very easy. Ask you about your location, which is important, obviously, because we need to know, or they need to know, what areas have what kind of service. And it took about, I don't know, 10 seconds just to run it. And then they'll collect this information, and then it gives you the results that you can see. So it tested on a server in Chicago, basically. So, the speed test is from here in our office to Chicago, and it gives you your download speed, your upload speed, and some other information. But as you can see, like a few seconds ago, we got 36 meg down and 23 up approximately, which is pretty good. So people in some areas, you're going to probably see maybe, 1, 2, 3, if you're having, a poor internet connection. But this is just basically the information that people will get and that will be recorded, for the state to look at.
How do you interpret that information, Andrew? I'm not sure. That's way over my head of 36.
What does latency mean, for example?
Yeah. How would that be interpreted? How would the general public, if they did that, interpret that information? Is that good, bad? I don't know.
Well, for us, that's very, that's pretty good. Of course, we have, high quality fiber internet here. So that's good speed. The lower the number, the lower the speed. So, we're at 36 down. So, if you're getting, 1, 2, 3 down, that's probably pretty not great, so it's just the higher that number, the better the results. The more speed you have, the more you can do, the more you can download, videos and all that. So
what does latency mean? What does latency? What does that refer to?
Well, I'm not sure that I can give you the super technical definition of that. It's, basically if like packets are falling out or there's issues getting to this, with connection. I don't know that I can give you the super technical definition of latency, but The main numbers you're really going to be concerned about are the up and download speeds for the most part.
Okay, so, but people can, Squire Moore?
Yeah, I went home and tried this the other day after our conference, and I'm still waiting for it to make a full circle. Then I climbed the antenna and did it up on top of the antenna on my phone, and I'm still waiting on that too. So if that's the way it is out of my neck of the woods.
Yeah, if you have problems running I mean, if it won't even like run, then yeah, you have some serious issues at that point. That means you're not even basically able to run a small
We've
test.
got fiber optic coming through my backyard, but hopefully with all this, we'll get somebody to lease that line and bring it out my way.
Right.
Andrew, if you would check on latency, and more than likely that's
the definition here. I just pulled it up. It's the time for the data to be transferred from its original destination from its original source to this destination measured in milliseconds. So basically it's the time that it took for the package to get from here to Chicago and back.
cool. Okay. Any other questions on this? And thank you for getting this together. We appreciate it. And we look forward to the next step after that, finding out what the study tells us. And then we're looking for guidance from the state and Kentucky KIA as part of moving forward to helping our community. So we're going to, as I said before, this is a great opportunity. So we'll do what we can to make sure that we can move this forward. And if you don't mind, I'm going to switch item 8 and item 9. I'm just going to keep you on and you talk about item 9, the VOCA grant, and then we'll go to item 8 after you're finished.
Okay, sure. This is the window is open for us to reapply for the next federal fiscal year for our VOCA funding. This is one of those grant programs that a certain pot of money is available, and then depending on how many entities apply for it and who is eligible. So we won't really find out, we never do find out exactly what our funding is until October and sometimes November of the fiscal year. But we have been in this program for quite a while now, which gives us good standing. So, we feel confident that our application will be successful. So I just need to have authorization to reapply for the next year for this funding.
Okay. So any questions on that funding, Squire Sebastian?
Thank you, Judge. And this actually may be a question for our treasurer. And it's in regard to the percentage of increase for VOCA over the past few years. Has that percentage for the program increased steadily, say 5 to 10% every year? Is it holding steady? Do we have a sense of that?
And you take that, please.
Are you asking about the funding amount?
Yes, ma'am.
No, actually, the couple of years before the pandemic, we'd actually seen a little bit of decrease, but not a lot. It's been pretty solid for us. The federal funding provides about 80% of the cost of our program, and we provide about 20% of that. And that's been pretty consistent over the last, I'd say 5 years. At one time when we had more than one advocate and some additional expenses associated with that, our match was higher, even though it wasn't required to be. But because we want the kind of quality program that we have here in Franklin County, we funded the program to its needs, not just the 20% of whatever the federal funding was. But currently, and for the last few years, we've been holding at that 20% funding level for our match.
Okay, that somewhat gets at the next question I have about the county, whether it has increased its funding really commensurate with the percentage of the increase that may have come with federal dollars, or has have the awards typically, the federal awards typically covered everything? But it sounds like we hold steady at about 20%. Is that Would that be
That's
accurate?
That's correct. And last year and this year, because of the pandemic, the 20% match is not a required part of the grant program. However, we are required to provide the information on that 20% match and the actual cost of our program in the narrative. So it's kind of saying you don't need to show it in your financial reports for the grant, but you need to show it to us so that we still are aware of what the program costs are.
Thank you.
Okay, Squire Muller?
Thank you, Judge. Thank you again. And so just curious, like, how does the paperwork look? Do you put in for $150,000 and like this year it says we got received 57,864? I mean, what's the ask, I guess, is my question.
What I apply for is the program cost based on, and each year I update that information based on benefit costs and anything else that might be a variable. The operational costs are pretty steady as far as phone costs and the rent costs for the AOC space. The things that vary are things like retirement and some of those kinds of things, just like with everybody else. So what I apply for is the total cost of the project and factor in our 20% match. And then hopefully our federal funding comes back at somewhere around that 80%.
Okay, thank you, Ann.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, Ann. The next item on the agenda is authorization to approve a resolution authorizing a donation to the Sunshine Center for use in the continuation of essential services due to budget shortfall caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. We have Amber Logan on. Amber, welcome. Thank you for being here. Would you want to talk to the court about your needs and what you're asking for?
Certainly. Thank you, Judge and Squires, for this opportunity to speak to you on behalf of the Sunshine Center. Our agency has been helping victims of domestic violence and family abuse in our community for over 20 years. We're the only domestic violence safe house shelter in Franklin County, and we also offer adult, child, and family therapy. Some of the other programs that we offer to help victims are parenting classes, supervised visitations, case management services, as well as an infant pantry for young and low-income mothers. The COVID pandemic has affected us all. Last Wednesday, we met with the Attorney General's office, and statistics that we have regarding domestic violence in Kentucky and child abuse show a 9 to 10% increase throughout COVID. The Sunshine Center has not discontinued any of its services. We've had our doors open the entire time, and we are trying to help that extra 10% of victims, even though we've been unable to have our normal fundraisers throughout the year. Some of you may have attended some of these, such as Jill Robinson's January Jamboree and the Capitol Blues and River Festival. Due to the socioeconomic impact of the pandemic, donors have been spread thin and donations are less than they have been in past years. In order to continue to provide all the services and shelter to victims, the Sunshine Center is requesting $20,000. This money will help continue our programs in the community and allow us to build partnerships and domestic violence response teams. We've recently been working with law enforcement, DCBS, the hospital, and our schools in order to reach more victims and do a lot of more preventative work with youth and become more effective in helping people heal. As Tish said, we are better together, and we are working to create teams to help lessen domestic violence and child abuse in our community.
Amber, thank you. Last year, the fiscal court gave you $10,000 through our community agency monies. So you're asking an additional $20,000 to the $10,000. Is that what you're asking for?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. Squire Muller?
Thank you, Judge. And thank you, Amber, for everything you all do. Just curious, just so I see the big picture, could I presume that you're asking the city for the same monies, or is it just us?
The city has, I think through the CARES Act, donated an extra $10,000 to us. So, I mean, if we need to, we can come back and ask them for more money.
Okay, so you believe the two events that you've kind of put down here, basically, you usually make, say, $30,000 off those two events. Is that kind of the math?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, all good. Thank you. I just wanted to understand it. Thank you.
Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge, and Director Logan. I appreciate you being here with us today. I want to, can you talk with us, I guess, about additional service requests that you've gotten through this past year, so we can kind of see the level of provision of what was going on maybe in 2019 pre-pandemic, and how the request for your services may have ratcheted up this past year, just to give the court a level of and more importantly, the community a level of understanding about the need for these types of services.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we are just getting to the point where, you know, the pandemic is hopefully slowing down and, you know, people are coming out of isolation. The number of phone calls have increased. The number of people that we have had to put in our shelter has increased. And then there are other things that we didn't have before, such as rent assistance, just helping to keep people in their homes and you know, keep them from being evicted, and helping them with utilities and groceries.
Are you all funneling anyone to like ROSM for additional assistance with like utilities? Because both the city and the county have provided a considerable amount to that organization to assist with utilities. I just don't know how many people are coming to you for utilities outside of some of the other services like rent and groceries that you mentioned.
We do. You know, the people that we serve are strictly domestic violence victims. So anybody that would not fall under that category, we would refer them and help them to get to ROSM. Okay.
And I think I'm just going to piggyback on a question that Squire Muller had asked, where you've talked about the need to fill the void in the budget deficit. Outside of approaching the city, I'm assuming you gave them some similar request to what has come to the county. Is there any other entities, organizations, federal, state, local, that you're looking to request any additional assistance?
Yes, we also write several grants. We write for the VOCA grant. So we have done that. United Way, which we actually get less money from United Way now that they've been absorbed into United Way of the Bluegrass. So that impacted us as well.
And so what I'm understanding is, now that you've seen this budget deficit, the sources that you've gone to have been the city, and they have given you 10,000. You're coming to the county for other sources, but outside of your typical grant writing and fundraising request, you haven't gone to others to help fill this budget deficit. That was really my question.
No.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to understand that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you for coming on, Amber. We'll have a voting session in a few minutes. Hopefully, let's see, Squire Booth has something to say or ask. Go ahead, Squire.
I wanted to ask Director Logan if your organization had to turn down anyone for the Safe House in this past year.
The only reason we have had 2 people that we didn't turn them down, we referred them to another agency, and that was because of mental illnesses. They required, 24-hour watch with medications and with conditions such as schizophrenia and bipolarism that we just are not equipped to handle.
So there was just 2 cases that you had to turn down for residents in the safe houses. Is that what you're, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Once again, Ms. Logan, thank you very much. We appreciate the work of the Sunshine Center. And as you said, we're all working together to help people in our community. And you're one of the pieces of it. And you're a big piece, and we appreciate what you're doing. So we're going to be voting on this and the amount, whether to and the amount in just a few minutes. So if you want to hang on, I know you've been here a while. But we'll get to the voting part in just a few minutes, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks again for what you do. Appreciate it. Okay, the next item on the agenda is authorized to approve a resolution adopting and approving the execution of County Road Aid Co-op Program money between the Fiscal Court and the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Mr. Mitchell, John Mitchell, welcome.
Morning. This is our yearly state money, really. It looks like it's up a little bit from last year, which is a good thing. What is it, 805, somewhere in there. I think 700 is where we were at last year, around about. I think we have received a little bit more than that, so their estimates were maybe a little short, but it looks good. It's coming back our way.
Yeah, we like for it to come back our way, John. John, normally what do we spend this money on?
Most of this is bridge projects, paving, any substantial project, infrastructure. That's where it's at.
Okay. Questions, Squire Sebastian?
Thank you, Judge. And certainly we are very appreciative of these funds, and certainly even more appreciative of them going up. I just wanted to check to see what type of considerations are already underway within the road department about how these funds will be used on specific roads and bridges within the community. I would venture to say there's a arm length list of projects that we need to work on. Just didn't know how those were being prioritized and what you all were thinking at this early stage. And thank you very much in advance for your answer.
I always keep a list put together for last minute stuff. So I've already got a good idea of where I want to go with things. I'll still present that to the road committee here soon, and we'll get our ducks in a row and see where we want to go. We do have a bridge project. It's actually in the design phase right now. I'm going to try to see if I can get some 80-20 money on that. But I've got a rough idea of what I want to do, and I'll get that to you as soon as we get it all squared away.
All right, any other questions for John on municipal road aid? Okay, John, thank you. And we'll be hearing back from you soon on projects. The next item, John, is authorization to purchase a 2022 Ford F-250 Super Duty 4x4 Super Cab pickup truck.
Yes, this is a result. I'm sure most of you heard about it. About 2 months ago, one of our trucks was involved in an accident, and it totaled the truck. You cannot find a truck. It's a hard game right now. I didn't want to wait this long, but it looks like it's going to be probably up September, October, maybe later before we can get one. But they're just not out there. We looked at different ways to try to find one to replace it pretty quick, but it's not going to happen. So, and all this, well, the majority of it will be paid by the insurance.
Okay, Squire Muller.
Thank you, Judge. Hey, John, until I read my packet, I was not aware that there was an accident. Is the employee okay? I guess is my first question.
Yeah, he's good. He was just banged up a little bit for a couple of days, but he's okay. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess, Judge, maybe this is a question for you, because I know this kind of came up when we had some things, I think, stolen down there. And I think when another fire department truck was wrecked by accident, would there be a way to notify the court? Maybe if something kind of bad like this happens, just so we know about it? I guess that's just a request. Other than that, I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay. John, yeah, there'll be a way. We normally don't do that unless it's to the point of a very serious accident. This was serious, but he was okay. If he had been seriously injured, yes, we would have let you know. We have accidents quite often with the sheriff's office. Matter of fact, we don't know about them for 3 or 4 days later and whatever. So it's not a common practice unless somebody is significantly, seriously injured. So, but we can, and we'll look at doing that, seeing we can get that out as soon as we can on that. Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge, and appreciate Squire Muller's question there. I think to the point of it's been 6 weeks and I didn't have any idea as well as till I looked in my book. So it would be helpful to have that information maybe in a more timely manner. And it's good to know that the staff wasn't critically injured in any way. Was there any other equipment that was attached to the truck that was impacted that we may need to replace as well?
Yes, it did have a small salt spreader in the back of it, and it tore it up pretty good. The insurance is going to pay for, I think, about half of the cost on that, and I went ahead and figured that into my next budget. So I'll replace it out of that. I actually need another one, so I'm trying to hopefully get a better deal if I buy 2.
Okay. And is there any additional equipment or options that will be on the vehicle that you're proposing to be ordered that was not on the totaled vehicle? Is there something you saw that you needed as part of this new bid package?
Not really. Only thing we'll have to add to it will be the snowplow bracket, but that's minimal and my guys can install that. But other than that, I mean, it's pretty much the same exact truck we had.
Thank you.
Okay, John.
Okay, I have a question. I just want to clarify, since we process the claims here, on what claims the court would like to see, because we can process several within a week. Sometimes we'll go a month and not have any, but are you only wanting serious accidents? Are you wanting every accident that comes through our office that's an insurance claim? Because we'll have fire department, jail, there's all of the departments that fall under fiscal court. So I just want to clarify what accidents that we need to start reporting.
Muller.
Thank you, Judge. Jamber, thank you. I don't want to speak for the court. I just, I think it'd be helpful because we represent our constituents that we know before it, gets on Facebook or somewhere or whatever. I mean, I would say maybe insurance claims. I think things smaller than that, isn't a problem. But I mean, like in this instance, I mean, if John's talking about it messed the snowplow bracket and trashed the salt spreader, I mean, that sounds like a pretty serious accident. So for me, not speaking for anybody else, maybe insurance claims would be sufficient.
Okay. And I'll have to probably get with Betty Jo to make sure that I don't release any HIPAA information, because
we have to be careful on that too.
No, that's fine. Yeah, no, I understand that. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. All right, let's move to the next item, John. De-icing salt. I can't remember what it was last year. Is this a plus for us or a minus on the cost?
Well, I think it's a plus from what I was betting on. I was expecting a double in the price, but it didn't. Looks like it's almost $27 more a ton than it was last year. It was $65.56 last year, and now it's $92.50.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and I've estimated 2,500 tons, which is a lot of money, but I don't have I probably got around probably 500 ton is all I've got. I tried to get more at a cheaper price later, but that didn't work. So this is where we're at now. And that's what I need to budget probably in my upcoming budget for sure.
Okay. Squire Booth?
Well, based on my experience this year with snow and ice, I would say that we should get all the salt we can get.
Good point, yeah. Good point, Squire Booth, okay. Any other questions on this? This was done through reverse auction, right, John?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad. One time it was over $120, wasn't it?
Yes, it has been that high. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, and no other questions from John. Thank you, John, for your presentation. Let's go to authorization to declare property as surplus disposed by auction by the fire department. Chief Hutcherson.
Good morning, Court. Yes, we are asking authorization to surplus the equipment before you. Most of it's out of service, and some of it's been sitting around for a considerable amount of time.
Okay. Any questions for Chief? Squire Sebastian?
Thank you, Judge, and Chief, thank you very much for being on with us today. It looks like this is a fairly extensive list for surplus. I counted north of 100 items on it. Do we know how frequently we go through the station inventories and review them so that maybe unused and inoperable equipment is removed from the inventory list? The key to that is that the county pays insurance on all those things. So we want to roll it off those lists as soon as we possibly can to save that insurance money.
Yes, ma'am. It's been over 2 years since we've done a major or a thorough accounting of what needed to be surplused. A lot of this stuff has come from the station, the administrative station of Station 8. When we moved out of it, it was still left up in the attic and needs to go, especially after Jeremy did such a wonderful job on our heating and air system up there.
When we get this, when we put this out to surplus it, do the proceeds come back and go in our general fund?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Do we also know if the list has been reviewed by other county officers in case there's a need for things like there's an extension ladder on here? Is that something that Jeremy could use, or can the park use that? There's some desks. There are some lockers on there. Is that something that could go to the park and help out in the golf shop, or maybe at the road department? I'm just asking this, and it may be common practice that this list has already been circulated and items can't be used.
It has already been circulated for department heads to look at, Squire.
That's also a requirement in our administrative.
That's
code.
part of our requirement. to do that.
I was just wondering because I saw in the bills later on that while we're surplusing some filing cabinets, we're also buying a filing cabinet for the fire department. So I just wasn't sure if there was something absolutely that was broken on the filing cabinet, the drawers wouldn't open, or what was going on.
Yeah, they are, yes, they are small. And if I'm not mistaken, one of them is broken. We don't surplus a lot of high quality stuff. There are some items on here that are, but a lot of the stuff we just need to get rid of.
Chief, to Squire Sebastian's point about insurance, most of these items are items that are replaced with newer or more modern or up-to-date items, right? So it doesn't really affect the insurance because you replace the old with, I guess it does in the, you've got the number there, but it's probably insignificant. So you're really getting surplus stuff replaced by newer stuff. Is that correct?
Probably, yes, sir. Correct. Probably the biggest ticket item that will come off the insurance roll will be the reserve fire engine.
Yeah, that by far, that, yeah. Okay, Squire Tracy?
Thank you, Judge. Just one quick thing in regards to the fire engine. I'm hearing Charlie wants that at the park. How are we getting rid of a vehicle in the park, not get it?
Yeah, I spoke with Charlie about that, and he had a bit of a chuckle, but he's welcome to it. But I think it's a little much for his needs.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for the chief? The next item is also a surplus property, and this is a question that I have for you, not so much you, but for the sheriff, that anytime, and we've said this before, and I'll say this again, anytime we have surplus property by two different entities or more, we should be doing these surplus properties together. It should be a joint venture. I'm not sure how we missed that boat, but we should be doing these together. Is the sheriff on here? I know he's wanting to dispose of some items as well. He is wanting to use those items to help pay for the vehicle that he bought. And so I understand, Tamara, is that correct? He doesn't want to go back to the general fund?
He would like for the proceeds to go to his vehicle
Towards,
maintenance.
in the general fund, but towards his vehicle. Is that correct? Right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So any question? I can't answer any questions for the sheriff. He's not on here. So, but anyway, once again, I say emphatically that when we have surplus auctions, we should be doing it jointly as best we can. Sometimes that doesn't work, but let's do the best we can to coordinate that, because I'm sure a lot of departments have things. The bigger, the better. That brings more people in. So,
And I believe John is working on trying to pull together a countywide auction for our surplus.
that's awesome. Thank you, John, for working on that. The next item is authorization to approve an order setting commissioner compensation for the US 60 Water District of Shelby and Franklin counties. I think Mr. Bullock is on. Is Mr. Bullock on here? He represents the US 60 Water Board. They're actually, these commissioners are not being paid. The other commissioners on the board are being paid, and they're wanting them to receive the same monies, and it needs to come through us as well. All the other water boards members are being paid, and so they're asking to get the same benefit. I'll do my best to answer any questions if there are. Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge. You may have already clarified one. So I'm going to just try to paraphrase what you've said, and that may be dangerous on my part. So I apologize. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm just trying to understand what you said. So this is a bifurcated board. It represents Shelby and Franklin County. Are you saying that the members that represent Shelby County, that live in Shelby County, are paid members, and
Yeah.
the folks that live in Franklin County who represent the Franklin County side are not paid? Is that correct?
That is the way I understood it, based by his letter, that they were not getting paid, and they wanted to equalize it. That's the way I understood it by his correspondence.
Okay, because I wasn't clear, and that was a question I had. I also wasn't clear because it says that the memo title has to do with Water District, Shelby and Franklin counties, and Salmon Construction Commissioner compensation. So are we being asked to pay salmon construction commissioners as well? I didn't see any text in there about that, but I noticed that in the title of the memo. So I just didn't want to presume thing and not understand the other.
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, I don't.
Totally unclear on that.
Yeah, me too.
I was hoping that Mr. Bullock would be on I asked Tamara, I think Tamara talked to him yesterday about to clarify any questions, but I don't see him.
He had planned to be on here. I can
Okay.
try to contact him if you all would like to see if he can jump on.
At later time, if he could, but we'll go on through the agenda. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Hopefully he'll be on by the end of when we get to the voting Squire Muller?
Judge, thank you. This might have to wait for him. I'm just curious how they're doing financially, I guess, would be, before we say we're gonna, pay, I just want to make sure they're in good standings, I guess.
They are in good standing. We receive their minutes, or I receive their minutes. They are in good standing.
Okay, so they have the money. So, all right, thank you.
They do.
Okay.
Good. That's a good question. Yes, they do. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, and that item is authorization to approve a financial support request from the Franklin County Fair Board. Now, the Franklin County Fair Board initially sent a request in for $5,000 to be part of the fair. We had been giving $500 as part of an ad program to the Franklin County Fair. They called and they wanted for us to be part, to move that 500 up to a higher level for support of the fair to a $5,000 ad. That was the initial, that's why this was on here initially. Last night, they sent in a request and asking us for that 5,000 plus 5,000 more to help with the fair. So now they're asking, they went from 5,000 for an ad for more coverage of the fair with their booklet to an additional 5,000 for just towards the fair. So I throw that out to you all as that's their request. You've got that. They have that, right? You all have that. You can see what that request is. Is there anybody here from the fair? Is Patty Cross on here?
Not that I'm aware of now.
Okay. I don't see anybody from the fair. Squire Muller?
Yeah, Judge. I mean, looking at this, this is definitely something to talk about. I think everybody on here likes the fair and loves the fair. I guess my question would be, obviously, I'm assuming this is because they haven't had an opportunity because of the pandemic to, do events and things. But I guess looking at it from a business standpoint, what are they going to do moving forward? Are they going to offer more events throughout the year? I think it's hard to just do one event a year and keep it going per se. So I guess if we have an opportunity to talk to somebody, I guess I would like to see more of the vision of the fair from this point forward. So I don't know if anybody else on the court has any other ideas, but that's just throwing it out there so we can talk.
Let's bring Charlie Lewis on. Charlie, you've had several contacts with the fair. Can you help with Squire Muller's interest in what he's talking about? Do you have any insight?
A little bit. I've been to the past few meetings for the fair, and they're obviously they're getting a late start and trying to come out of the pandemic. Their intent is to provide something for the community this summer in July. Excuse me. And they're running around trying to raise money. Not just here, but with other organizations and trying to put a fair together as quickly and efficiently as they can. I'm not aware of any additional events. That might be something that could come under consideration at some future fair board meetings. And we can maybe get on their schedule and see when their next fair board meeting is to maybe discuss that with them and see, if they're looking for additional funds, obviously to help for this year, but what else could they possibly offer? So, we could get more involved in some meetings if the court or maybe park committee would like to do that.
Charlie, I think per Squire Muller's conversation, it might be better that they're asking this, but they need to come to a fiscal court meeting and be present and make their ask and give us their vision and what their plans are on raising money other than just asking it from us. I guess that's where Squire Muller's coming from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can maybe per your all's permission, put them on the next court agenda.
Yeah.
And get some more details.
Yeah. I think that'd be a good idea.
Great. Okay.
Squire Moore.
Doesn't their contract with the park, with the county, limit them to the 1 week? Seems like they tried to have some other events and there was conflicts or something that just comes to memory.
No,
Yes.
haven't they done some more? They used to do truck pulls in September and did some things. There were some issues about limiting the hours, but they've done other things other than the fair, haven't they, Charlie?
They have, and their contract it does state pretty much for fair week, and then if they go outside of that particular week, it's a request. They bring it to the court, and they have had a few in the past, but the time frames and the noise levels have been a concern of area neighborhoods, but they have had a few in the past, but their contract just deals with fair week. It's my understanding.
Right.
Any other questions? Okay, Charlie, I asked them to.
So Judge, are we gonna table this?
No, we don't.
Next meeting?
We want to, we can table it. Would you prefer we do that? There was an specific ask for the ad. If you want to bring that up, the $5,000. What we've been paying 500, they're asking for 5,000. So, and then the other monies that they're asking for is help towards the fair. So I'm willing to. I think the ad will need to be done as ASAP to get that in place. But if you want to wait, we can.
Judge, if I could Charlie, could you provide us a copy? And I don't have one handy, and as you said, it's been some years ago. A copy of the current contract with the fair board, because I think that would be helpful to the court as they're taking a look at requests for funding. I think it would be certainly inappropriate for me to comment just off memory of something that old without having the hard copy document. But I do recall it to be limited, but I'd like to see a hard copy, and I'm confident the court would like a hard copy of that as well.
Yes, absolutely. I can get that to you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Get that to Tamara and she'll get it out.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Judge, I'm kind of Squire Moore. I mean, I would like to maybe have them at our next meeting and kind of get a full, view of what's going on and what their vision is and things like that before we agree to anything. That's just me personally.
That's all right. It's anybody against that want to go on with it, or is everybody in general okay with that holding up until they can
We
come?
really don't know their timeline or anything. I don't, but the way I understood this new request is asking for COVID funds to help with because of their problems in raising funds. The timeline is something I don't know anything about.
I would
we'll
like
bring
to
them on the next meeting.
postpone it.
Okay, we'll bring them on and have them talk to us. Is that okay with everybody?
That's fine.
All right, let's do that. So we'll strike that one, Tambra. The next item is authorization to hire part-time bookkeeper, Susan, Betty Jo. Susan, you
Betty
on?
Jo, yes, Betty Jo, do you want to speak to?
You can go ahead, Susan.
We have an excellent candidate, and I hope that he can start Monday. We had some really good applications. We had a lot of applications. I guess Betty Jo will speak more to that, but we had several really good candidates. It was a tough decision, but I think we've got someone who's really going to add a lot to our staff here, our team. I can't wait for him to get started.
Yeah, we received 23 applications. We had a pretty good pool of applicants this time. I believe it was because the areas that we advertised in, we advertised in the State Journal, and Indeed is really a great recruiting tool now, in my opinion. We've been using Indeed. We've been receiving a lot of applications from that. We put it on our Facebook page, our web page, the Chamber, Kentucky State University, and boosting our Facebook's employment ad also. So we had 23 applications and we accepted 5 to interview. And during the interview process, one accepted another position and another was a no-show. So actually we ended up interviewing 3. And we narrowed it down to 1 candidate. And this is a replacement for Kim Devers that actually left us back in November. So Susan is ready to get this temporary permanent position filled ASAP.
Any questions? Squire Sebastian?
Thank you, Judge. Just a quick one. Did the committee get any kind of research and analysis samples so we can see kind of, or so the committee could be apprised of like the scope of what additional assistance he may be able to give to the treasurer? Because it seems like he highlighted that quite a bit in his application as well as in his cover letter. I'll assume it was a cover letter. Thank you in advance.
I
don't understand
I'm not
the
sure
question.
that what you're asking. What do you mean additional services to the treasurer?
My question was, did the committee seek any work samples of his research and analysis work? Because that would help provide the treasurer some assistance in that area when we're asking for analysis and research so that she's not constantly always having to do it. She can pass that off to someone equally trained and qualified to do so. Thank you in advance.
I'll let Susan respond to that.
Actually, I'll let the HR respond to that. As far as I know, the hiring process has not included any kind of testing or I'm not sure what process Betty Jo goes through for verifying candidates' backgrounds, but it's more of an oral interview on my side, and then ultimately performance once they show up.
Okay, I was just trying to see if there were any samples. You know, in the past when I've done things, I've had them bring in writing samples and analysis samples and things like that. I'm not clear on what the interview process is. So my question was, were any writing samples, research samples, analysis samples requested and reviewed by the committee? It sounds like the process internally, that did not happen, and that's okay. Like you said, we'll see. Rubber will meet the road when asked. Thank you very much.
Yeah, there were a lot of technical questions asked and followed through by Susan, what she needs, along with software use of, and the technical questions with those software items. And this person was very adept at and knowledgeable of on the use of those software programs. Okay. Any other questions? All right, let's go to the next one. Susan, let's do cash transfers.
These are budgeted items for balancing the shortfalls in certain funds that we have and we anticipate each year. So for activity, I try to do these typically with the quarter, but I'm a little on the backside. So we show negative balances for that current year's activity and several of the funds. And this will replenish the cash in those funds to make to bring their overall budgets closer to balance. So these do not increase the overall budget. It just moves the money from the general fund to those to supplement those resources and those shortfalls. Hope that makes sense.
Keep going. That's the question. Keep going, Susan.
Quarterly report. I didn't share this with you in the handout, but typically on the month sum report that I do, where it's the long form with each with each of the funds, and it shows the current year's receipts, current year's expenditures, and then the current year's, over or under. And as we all know, the FY21 is really inflated on the receipt side by I think it's $8.4 million in one-time receipts that we have. And as Squire Mueller has been very has asked over and over about making sure we try to look like what a regular year is, as Squire Sebastian has. And once you take out that 8.4 million, that $30 million in current year's receipts comes down to about 22 million. When you compare that to our same period in 2020, it's almost identical spot that we are in, and it is actually a little higher than 2019 when you do that side-by-side comparison in receipts. So we can say, I think we can continue to say, and the data continues to present itself, that we've come through this pretty secure as far as the county funding has gone on the receipt side. And pretty much the same thing when you look at expenditures exclusive of those one-time funds for fiscal year 21 versus fiscal year 2019. We are better off than we were at that point for expenditures. So at the bottom line, when we see those large numbers of what our fund balance is and the increases, it is largely due to those one-time monies. And as we learn that it's dependent on projects that go over many years and not just within 1 year. So even though the financial report just shows within 1 year, we're going to have carryover. We're going to have significant carryover that we will be budgeting again because of one, that's the way counties have to budget, and two, because it is real money, it is real cash in the bank, but it came from a prior year, so we have to we'll be using that surplus, so to say, to supplement the budget. And on to the note on the audit, that 1.4 million was that we added to our bottom line. Again, it was because of projects we didn't do. If you recall, we had delayed road paving, and even the Farmdale project was delayed, so it got pushed into the next year. So all of those kinds of big ticket items really put that sticker shock on the pluses and minuses when you're looking at the numbers. So it's good for us to just constantly remind ourselves about those one-time funds. And in fact, that we had a private donation of over $500,000 that basically saved the county that money for the election equipment. So these things have good impacts as far as the county government is going, and I think we're on track for a good rebound back to normal. Our state payroll for the quarter ending 3/31/21 is 88% of 2019. So not doing the comparison to 2020, but of 2019, we're at 88% in quarter to quarter comparison. And that is, constantly being told, we look at 2019, and we did it, and that might actually reflect something we expected, was that realignment of state staff with the opening of the new building. So we wouldn't, I don't think, expect to show an equal number of 2019 receipts, but would expect to show some shrinkage as far as the number of employees at state. That too, we are recovering there from this quarter. Last year, we're a 30% increase over where we were for the number of employees, and as far as 2019 comparison go, we're 95% of the 2019 number of state employees that were reported by the state. So the state payroll is, one of our largest. It's less than $800,000 a year, whereas the cities is more like $8 million. So they're suffering a much larger impact possibly with state issue than we are, simply because of the volume of the size of their numbers. But that's just a quick report and indicator there. Questions?
Squire Booth.
I don't see the donation of $500,000. I don't see that in your report.
Oh, that was in the general fund under private donations. That was, if you recall, I think it was some large data agency that, maybe it was Bill Gates that gave that money for.
I believe it was Zuckerberg, or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah, thank you. The other, Super Z.
Okay, that's very nice.
Yeah. Squire Blackburn.
Yes, thank you, Madam Treasurer. We went from cash transfers to quarterly report really quick, and I didn't have a chance to ask you a question. I saw on the transfers out, you got 3.4 million coming out of general fund, and you've explained how we do that. It's foreseeable. We knew we were going to do it. But on the road cash fund, the road fund cash, do we generally transfer out of one department to another department like that?
Yes.
And are they just not needing that 300,000 this year?
Well, no, I meant that's a typo. Thank you, Squire. That's 2. It's not from, it's 2.
Okay. I saw a double line and I thought it might have been.
Thank you. I added that above the line. So we are transferring to the road fund. Thank you for that clarification, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Susan, did you get everything in that you needed to talk about?
Yes, sir, unless there's questions.
All right. Payment of claims. Next item is payment of, I'm sorry. Hold on, Scared. I'll get you. I got you. Squire Sebastian.
I apologize, Judge. I thought we were still under tab 19. I'm sorry. I didn't hear us go to tab 20. I apologize for that. I was kind of waiting. I assumed that's what you were going to say next. Under tab 20, Madam Treasurer, on page 6 in the expenses section, within the general services, the line item 0191000301, which is auditing services. There's about a 50% increase, and that's possibly going to go up between now and the end of this fiscal year. Is that due to the additional audits of the former sheriff?
Largely, not only the additional audits, but the high cost of those because of the condition of that office. So it was out of the ordinary expenses because they spent more time on the audits.
Okay. And do you have a sense if there are any additional like audit requirements that were mandated in this session of the General Assembly? It seemed like they were fixated on things like auditing this session. So I didn't know if you had received any information out of this session that talked about additional auditing requirements.
No, not explicitly. And this year, because we're so preoccupied with the federal side, I really haven't heard a lot of recap from the legislative session and, the summaries that of whatever legislation was passed, for the counties. I haven't seen a lot of guidance on that. I think there was something to do with the billing side of it, but that was more maybe of a recovery for the state when the state does the audits, and the state won't do our audit next year.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I wondered if you had heard anything about any other, and you've somewhat answered that, about mandated services or functions of county government that, that also resulted, like, is the amount that we are going to have to pay on the retirement contribution. Is that staying the same? Is that stepping up to a level that we were supposed to pay maybe in 19 or 20, and then that incremental step, is that going to be kicked back in?
Well, yeah.
Are there?
Well, let me also say, regarding auditing, our audit costs will be increasing because we're going to have a federal audit every year, probably for the next 4 years for sure.
Yep.
Plus, I mean, we're going to have to add a fund. We're going to be handling more money. It's going to be, the audit costs are going to be greater in the coming years for fiscal court. That should be expected. And the timing of the audits, I think there might have been something in legislation about the timing of audits requiring when the state does the audit to get it done, to get it done quickly. That's one of the problems with the state doing it, is they take so long versus having a private firm. So I think that some of the legislation was around requiring the state to be more timely. I don't know how they do it with the staff they have, but that's on their side. And then as far as legislation regarding retirement, legislature did not act. They did not act. So the retirement board's recommendation for contribution rates will be the ones that will be in force, and they are a 12%. That's a 12% increase. The legislature in the 2020 had put a freeze on their own legislation or on their own statute, where it's going to have 12% increase for the next 5 years. They paused that, but that's back in place for this fiscal year.
So when we are contemplating the budget, we need to prepare for a 12% increase above what we are dealing with currently, right? I just want to make sure everybody understands that as we launch to this.
That is correct. I think it's about maybe $350,000 or something like that when you have a 12% increase, because we're so heavy with hazardous duty. It has a big impact.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Let's move on now to payment of claims. Are there any questions on payment of claims? Squire Muller.
Thank you, Judge. I have a question on, it's one of the jail funds, account number 03-5101-465. It's for 24-24. Basically, it says inmate uniforms. Just question, if it's related to inmates, isn't that a commissary expense?
I'd say typically we've been paying for those uniforms for years. I don't know. Susan, Tamara, do you know that?
This is an item that we budget for.
Yeah, it's
included in our fiscal year budget.
Okay, but I guess my bigger question is, if it is directly related to inmates, isn't that something that should or could be paid for out of commissary funds? And I believe Mr. Sparks might have an answer.
The court's affirmatively responsible to provide for the health, safety, and clothing for inmates. Corrections, as well as other rules, kind of frown on naked, cold inmates. You can't budget based or provide services based on speculative funds. So those have to be dedicated lines, again, for health, safety, comfort, those kind of things. And clothing would fall in that category, Squire.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. County Attorney.
Welcome, sir.
Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge. I just wanted to follow up on the federal project fund section of tab 21, which is several pages in. Vendor 075135-4200, which is COVID response. There were several, I guess, amenities placed into the work session room. Can somebody elaborate on how we will take advantage of those?
Yeah,
and use those? That would be great. Thank you.
I'll elaborate. Squire Moore and Squire Blackburn, who came in, where, as I've told you in our conversation, Squire Sebastian, we are working on trying to get our facility open and everybody back in, at least the elected officials back in and having meetings together. So as part of that, we looked at the logistics and how we're going to have to be separated and not sitting on top of each other. So we've added a couple things. We've put an additional TV on the back wall that we didn't have one. So as we separate out, we'll all be able to see people that have Zoomed, the general public, as they Zoom in to make statements, will also be able to see and better hear the department heads if they're using Zoom to present to us. So the whole idea is to make sure as we spread out in a room that one, we're comfortable, and two, that everybody has access to see and hear what's being presented to them. So it's a wiring process plus a TV that's up there. So we're working on it. We'll hopefully we're going to have something very soon on getting us back in for those that want to get back in. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
That's all right. Thank you. Can I
go
ask
ahead.
about the supplemental bills that were mailed to us in the evening,
Absolutely.
since we're on the bills?
Yes.
Thank you. In the supplemental bills, which is 01-5005-398, which is a payment to KMK for legal services regarding parcels B and C. The KMK invoice here that I'm looking at notes multiple communications, right around between 10 and 15 of those with the city. Has anyone received an update on those 15 conversations that the city's had with just so the county is apprised of that, since we're paying half the bill? Just wondering if we're getting information from all of these conversations that the city seems to be having with the attorney firm. Thank you in advance.
Well, you do understand the agreement was we'd pay half. As today you saw that Mr. Parsons was on the line, and so the agreement was agreed by all of us that it would go through the city would be the conduit. So those conversations were had with them. As it is being finalized, they come back to us and talk with us.
Absolutely. And Judge, none of those points that you've made were in question for what I raised. My question is out of these multiple conversations that were had with the city, is someone from the city keeping the county apprised? Because at least as a magistrate, I've not heard anything since February of last year. And I guess right around the time when we approved this agreement, we're not getting information out of these conversations. So that was my only question. Are we getting apprised of what's happening and coming out of those conversations? Thank you again in advance.
To a degree, not to a degree, yes. My question has always been to the city, and for the past month, when are you going to be able to take the information that you've got and bring it to our fiscal court? Today was that day. Thank goodness. It took a while, but today was that day. Squire Blackburn.
Yes, I'm trying to recall when we made that agreement with the city to pay for half of that bill. I thought that was for work towards a TIF. It seems like the work that they've been doing has been for an agreement with the city, their agency, and the developer, and it's not been on the TIF quite yet. So I don't know if I'm mistaken in that, my understanding of that, or if that's how it actually is.
Because I'm sure that's all part of the process, but Mr. Sparks, I'll let you answer that one.
Squire, and again, I've received the same correspondence you all have relative to what they're doing. The money that's being paid for council to do the TIF is broader than just a narrow view of just a TIF instrument or a TIF document. Those preliminary documents, such as the agreement that we all got to review today, the ordinance, the actual participation agreement, et cetera, it's going to come in. They're all part of the greater whole. I don't want to say be careful about taking too narrow of a view of it, but the TIF process is not just a one document, one draft, two reading kind of a process. All of that, at least in my mind, and I think the court at that joint meeting was aware that this was going to be an ongoing process with different components and different phases as it goes through. And that's what you've seen here today. The final result, at least of this phase, which is the development agreement, that is part of the same TIF process that the court agreed to pay for outside counsel to do. But it is an ongoing incremental process with steps along the way. Some of them might appear to be strange, or I don't want to say strange, or out of order or kind of random, but I understand that's the trail that we're all hiking together to get to the final product.
Thank you, Rick. I felt a little misled by saying, I know it has several parts and pieces, but some of those pieces aren't TIF. Some of them are just an agreement with the city and the developer. So I was just,
No, I'll be frank. I think it would be helpful to the court if the city, instead of batching up perhaps some bills and saying, well, here's the total for 15 contacts, would provide an itemized list perhaps of the 15 contacts and say, this is what we did on such and such a day. This is what was billed out. I'm hearing what your concern is the detail of the billing as opposed to the quality of services or quantity of services that are being provided. And I don't want to speak for you, but that's what I just heard you say.
yeah,
That's what I understood you to say.
The quantity of the billing, not the detail of the services. It's, just an itemized deal would be, I think that's what we've all been looking at, because we don't know what's happening.
I've heard the court's frustration on that at several points, that you wanted a more qualitative, more detail of the request for funding or reimbursement.
I just asked
that's
him
what I
to
understood.
send that to Tommy to get a little more detail in the billing. Okay.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Squire.
Okay. Saying nothing else, let's move to the other business. Before I ask you all, I'm going to, there's 2 or 3 things I want to go over with the court. Number one, I'd like for Squire Muller or Squire Tracy to give an update on the feasibility study and negotiations with the Hitchcock Group. Who wants to do that? Squire Tracy or Squire Muller, or both? Squire Muller, go ahead.
Since Squire Tracy is the elder, sir, I'll
The elder, okay, we're going by age, okay. Squire Tracy, I guess you missed out on the beauty part, so you got to go with the age part.
Well, I was hoping you two were going to give an update. Both of you all are named in the article that's getting ready to give the update in regards to the State Journal. So I'm going to refer back to you two.
Okay.
I don't know what you're talking about on an article, but I don't care. Go ahead. What do you?
I'll be happy to do it. Basically, I think we had a really good, first I want to thank the park committee and I want to thank the staff. I think we had a very good meeting with the Hitchcock Group, went through it for several hours and our county attorney was present. They kind of presented a base price. And then I believe, and Judge or Squire Tracy, I think it was 10 alternates I could have added to the contract.
9 alternates, Squire. I believe 9 was the number.
Okay, 9. And after much deliberation, we ended up with 2 that we thought was important to to add to the project. And so I don't know if you want me to go into detail, Judge. I mean, I'm just kind of giving an overview. Or Squire Tracy wants to add to it. I mean, we could talk money and get into it. I believe we're going to be talking about it, I'm hopeful, next week. So maybe Squire Tracy wants to add to that. That's kind of a start.
Yeah, we had long conversations in regards to what I seen as a base model, and then we had some add-ons. Again, I think there were 2 add-ons selected out of 9 that the majority agreed with. There was some verbiage that I think had to be cleaned up, and then that paperwork was to go to our county attorney. It's exciting. Can't wait for the project to get started. And again, like I said, it has to come back in front of the court. So I'll just keep saying, why not us?
Yeah, I'll leave the numbers out because I think that as our county attorney is working through those, he said this is not a contract until it's approved by the court, so I'll leave the numbers out. But there was a base bid. There was an additional amount of money that was part of the base bid for travel. That was negotiated to a X amount. The base bid equal a base amount plus those additions that then we agreed on a base bid, and then there were 9 items, a la carte items to choose from. And we'll go over those and the court will get to see those. And as part of that, it wasn't unanimous. The committee 2-1 recommended the 2 additional a la carte items for additional amounts. So there is a base, a negotiated amount based on what they were thinking of mileage to do the work, as well as 2 a la carte items that will be coming back to the court. And that will come back when counselor gets the opportunity to review and discuss with the Hitchcock Group, the contract itself. Rick, do you want to elaborate any more on that?
Well, and Judge, I just remind the committee did vote without any negotiation really onto the base bid at the 185 to incur 2 a la carte items totaling 202. I was waiting for Hitchcock to get their documentation back. They have made a boilerplate proposal document in terms of documentation, knowing that it needs to be perfected, consistent with Kentucky contract. I've not got that yet. So I can't do anything further until they get that back with a document that I can work with to make it consistent for this court. Upon doing so, I'm going to call or not call, only you all can call. I'm going to ask the committee to meet again and take a look at that agreement tinkered out. If you all approve it, then that matter will come back to the full court, and then the full court can deliberate that final proposal. But the committee did vote to offer, subject to languages in the final agreement, $202,000 for this project, subject again, like I said, to the full court voting on it at a date to be determined. I apologize. I have no other information. I've not heard nothing since last Thursday during that meeting. I'm still waiting on documents that I can edit based on their changes. And that's just part of it, the volley, back and forth. But it was that's what the committee agreed to, 202 as to the price, but the details still have to be worked out. And I can't comment on any details because I haven't seen the agreement since then.
So, Counselor, do you need to talk to Hitchcock about what you need as talking about Kentucky law, or do we need to let them know that you need? So,
Judge, we all, I thought we covered it very clearly about how the next process goes with the principals at Hitchcock last Thursday. They were going to insert the funding amounts in their proposal and was going to submit it to me. And I discussed that it was boilerplate on an Indiana contract, an Illinois contract, pardon me, whichever it was. And they were going to submit it back for review. And then I was going to propose some changes, but that's where we stopped at. Haven't heard back from them since we got off the meeting on last Thursday.
Do we know if I'm sorry, Rick, but do we know if, I know Robert's out, do we know if they sent it to Robert by chance?
I sent him an email late last night, kind of in anticipation of this today.
Yeah.
And well, you all got it too. And I was just giving you all a heads up that I've received no information of any kind since last Thursday.
Robert would have sent it, even though.
Oh, I have no doubt. I have no doubt he would send it promptly. And I was just letting you all know in anticipation of today's meeting,
right,
that I'm
right where you're. Okay.
I can't do anything until their job is to get it back to me, and then we'll do some work and then get it to you all to vote on it. And that's where we're locked in on.
So my question is still on the table, and that is, are you the conduit that tells them what they need to send you, or is Robert the conduit that needs to make sure that they send you what you need? I don't know that answer. Rick?
I told them in that meeting what they were, or they told me what they were going to do was to take their boilerplate language, insert the amounts that you all voted on, and submit it to me back for review. At that time, then I've got to make some changes because the gentleman clearly acknowledged that this is an out-of-state contract. There's some other matters that simply I would not agree or recommend the court agree on in terms of the terms. I don't want to get into the weeds on it, but their job was to insert the numbers and return it to me. And that's what they told you all last Thursday. And then I can review that. I've already got the notes, et cetera. Then I can get a product back to the committee, and the committee can consider voting on a recommended product, which at that point will not be preliminary because the committee's voted on it. And then it comes back to court for a final vote.
Okay.
Or not for the next vote, I should say. Final, nothing really final, but
Okay.
a different.
So at the very least, I'm going to,
It's in Hitchcock's hands, Judge.
yeah,
And
well,
they know it.
but if there's some misunderstanding, we don't need to let this just linger on. We need to make sure that everybody's on the same page and understanding what is needed. So we will make sure with Robert, first thing Monday morning, that there's communication.
I left it with the gentleman from Hitchcock with the statement. So you and I are on the same page. This is what you're going to provide. My notes say, yes, that's what you're going to provide. And I'm waiting for that to be provided. I'm not holding this up. And we were clearly of an understanding of what the next step in terms of the process of finalizing this agreement is.
Okay. Squire Muller.
Thank you, Judge. Yeah, I was just going to follow up on that and ask if we could contact them because obviously there was a breakdown somewhere. So no, that's good. I just, I'm truly excited about this for Franklin County. I think it's a huge project. I've been people from the Latino community, the city superintendent. I mean, people have been reaching out, excited, like, when are we going? When are we going? So I just want to assure everybody that we're still moving forward. And to Rick's point, we have to go through the protocols here. But
y'all know to interrupt Squire, that's just the agreement. There's still significant funding issues. That's why I keep pointing out it's critical that this has to come back to court.
Yeah.
This is not budgeted.
Right.
We're going to have to. There's other steps the formal court has to take to process this out.
Absolutely.
So that's why that's why I described it as a process.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I would agree with that. So yeah, I'm not putting the cart in front of the horse. I'm just explaining it. And I believe Mr. Lewis is on. I'd love to hear from our parks director if he has something to say too.
Charlie, go ahead.
Thank you. I'll be happy to this afternoon send out a friendly reminder to the Hitchcock group, just letting them know, we have deadlines to get on upcoming agendas. I'll be happy to do that just to kind of keep the wheels rolling here if you'd like for me to.
Well, if you've got their address, I don't think it's a happy reminder. I think it's a matter of they need to send their information that Rick Sparks has asked for, not a happy reminder. There's information that is needed for Kentucky law as opposed to Indiana law. So if you've got, I didn't know you had their address.
I have Randy's address, and it won't be a happy reminder. I'll just do a friendly reminder. How about that?
Well, I think it needs to be an explicit reminder. Of what
they know.
We're looking for words, and I think it's appropriate to get the right word, or we're still going to be peddling.
Well, let me just interrupt, and y'all get excited. You're going to regret it. Is all I got to say. Get in a hurry. You're going to regret it. It's only been a week. I was not expecting a presentation today. I was not in any way expecting a vote to get to the court. It doesn't work that way with the mechanism selected. I'm not jumping on Randy or Hitchcock group. I'm just saying that today when you're discussing, I haven't got anything. It's not a yelling at them about a delay, et cetera. It was only last Thursday, but I don't want to lose any speed on it in anticipation of the next meeting in 3 weeks. It's progressing exactly a piece as it's supposed to. Please, you don't have to yell at anybody, friendly reminders. You don't have to send them a box of chocolates or whatever. This is just processing it out through. Don't get real excited about it. it's just going to take the process that it takes. It's exactly within the time frame that we discussed last week. The point is, I can't do anything until the next step. It has to be a step process, and that's the next step is to get that back. So just cool your jets. Everything will work out, and it'll come to the next court meeting, I hope.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you. All right. Two other things, another business. April the 28th, we'll be meeting from 1 to 3. That's a Wednesday on budget. Also, because we know that we won't get through on April the 28th, I want you to put on your calendar May the 5th, which is another Wednesday, from 1 to 4. We'll have a budget work session on that at that time as well. So with that being said, is that not 12 to 3 on April the 28th, or is that 1 to 3? I think it's 12 to 3, isn't it?
Is it 12 to 3?
Yes, I'm sorry. The April 28th meeting was listed wrong. It's 12 to 3. Sorry, 12 to 3 on April the 28th, and May 5th from 1 to 4 on budget work session. 12 to 3 on April the 28th, and May 5th, 1 to 4. Okay. After all that, is there any other business on that part? Any other business?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
How would you all like to proceed with item number 15? I have reached out by email to Mr. Bullock and he's not responded, and Pam Polly has called his office and he's not in the office. He had planned to be on the meeting today, so something more than likely has come up. Do you all want to move with it, or do you want to remove it from the agenda until someone can come answer questions?
That's the US 60 Water Board.
Yes.
Commissioners, the 2 Franklin County commissioners getting paid like the rest. Squire Muller?
Thank you, Judge. Is this time sensitive? Is there a date on there when it would start? Is this a fiscal year thing for them? Does anybody know?
No, I don't know that. I'm just sure they're not, I guess they're not getting paid and they would like to get paid. So they meet once a month, and I can't remember exactly when their meetings are. Well, y'all, what's your pleasure? Keep it on or pull it off?
Postpone.
Okay. Squire Moore, it's actually more your district than anybody else. What are your thoughts?
Doesn't matter to me, Judge.
All right. Well, okay. We'll just pull it off, and
We don't really have the information we need. so
we'll get that
we can pull it off.
information. Sorry that you didn't have it. I thought he'd be here, so that's fine. Okay, let's go to constitutional officers, department
Judge.
report, committee updates. Squire Tracy.
Judge, sorry, I was just other business if you don't care. I think everyone is aware, but over the last several years, our community has been blessed to have some local student athletes recognized for being the best in the state at their particular sport. When you go to other communities, and I'll use Owen County as an example, Mason County. Owen County, they had a young man in 2016 win Mr. Basketball for the state of Kentucky. Mason County back in 2008 had Darius Miller. I'd like to see if it's possible for us to recognize the individuals that have won best at the state. You know, in '82, Connie Goins, Miss Kentucky Basketball. 2018, Wandale Robinson, Mr. Kentucky Football. And just the other day, Brooklyn Miles was recognized for being the 2021 Miss Kentucky Basketball. And a lot of these other communities, when you drive in, you'll see a roadside marker or something of that nature that is recognizing these student athletes for their accomplishments. Is that possible? Is that something we can look at doing?
Sure. Absolutely, we could do that. You have to get approval through the state, but we'll look at that.
Okay. And I'm not sure, Judge, if we'd want to go as far as, you know, the Franklin County high school team football team was runner up. I'm not sure, but I do know that, you know, these Mr. and Mrs. Basketball, or Mr. Football and Mr. Basketball, and you go to these other.
Squire, I appreciate your point is well taken, but you have
Okay, just want to make sure.
we
I get you.
there's a
Okay.
limit on the size of the sign and all that. So we need to be, if you want to recognize those student athletes,
Absolutely.
we need to, you can't let it grow to a point we can't do it.
Hey, understand. I'm just throwing it out there. So again, I definitely think the Mr. Football and Miss Basketballs definitely need to be recognized.
I think it's a great idea, and we'll see what we can do.
Okay, thank you.
Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge. I know earlier you had referenced the passing of Judge Executive Bob Arnold, and we probably all touched at some point the many contributions he's made to the community, and I want to echo that. But I also want to mention the passing of Betty Mefford. For 31 years, she touched Franklin County's farm families in a way that no one else has done, and really did a great job of setting the stage for our farming communities here and family farms here. So I think we would be remiss in not mentioning her today and all the contributions, that the lasting contribution she's made here in Franklin County to the farming families in our community. So I just want to share that as well. Thank you, Judge.
Okay. Well said. Anybody else? All right, it is 12.
Judge?
Mr. Sparks, sorry.
If I may, and normally I would do this in regular court, but I'd like to introduce a K-State student who has been interning through the criminal justice program during the last semester. She's getting ready to wrap up. Ms. Rodriguez, if you're available, turn your video on at least to say hi to my court. It's been a strange semester for her. She's been observing this in court, and as well as doing criminal court things for me. This is her first time she's been able to do fiscal court because of her work schedule and class schedule. But she has had the pleasure of this. She has had the pleasure of watching how fiscal court makes its sausages today through 1240. And I told her, I said, this is a very dynamic group. You're going to really learn a lot from just watching how they do it. Very dedicated public servants. And I just wanted to introduce her and thank her for everything that she's done for our office. And I hope she's got something out of this program. I sometimes think that we get as much out of our students that come and do that as they get out of us in the long run with a fresh perspective. But she is here, and I just wanted to introduce her. Ms. Rodriguez, are you live? Or are you asleep? It happens. It's okay.
I don't see her on here.
Well, she's on the participant list. I told her to get ready, but I do want to just thank her as well as the other interns that come in from K-State and otherwise. She worked with us for a grade, not paid, and that sometimes takes a little bit more dedication. But she stuck it out and completed her hours through her class for her classwork, and she's going to wrap up tomorrow. So I just wanted to thank her while we were all here together. Thank you all for your all support for our office and what we do. Sometimes you don't really see all the fun things we do, but this is part of it too. Try to get back a little bit.
Well, Ms. Rodriguez, we didn't catch you. We do appreciate your willingness to work, and hope you found it very enjoyable. And if you got to see us, you're seeing government in action. So wish you all the best in your classes. Charlie, I saw your hand up.
Thank you, Judge.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Judge. Just an update there. I have notified the Fair Board about the May 14th, I believe it is, meeting for a presentation.
I believe it's the 13th, isn't it? What time? When is that, Tamara? I believe it's the 13th, Charlie, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
It is the 13th.
It's the 13th.
Thursday, the 13th. Okay. And there is a Fair Board meeting this Monday night at 6 o'clock at the extension office. If anybody wants to pop in, I'll definitely try to be there. I do have a prior engagement, but I'll definitely try to be there as well. But there is another meeting Monday, the 26th at 6 o'clock at the extension office.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing nothing else, it's 12:45. At 12:45, 4 minutes. We're going to start again and do the voting session. You got 4 minutes, so we'll recess until 12:45. Okay, we're going back to open session. This is the Franklin County Fiscal Court meeting of April the 23rd. And this is the voting session. So clerk, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Here.
Squire Blackburn,
Present.
Squire Muller,
Present.
Squire Tracy,
Here.
Squire Booth,
Squire Booth. Unmute.
Present.
thank you, Squire Moore,
Here.
Judge Wells.
Here. In a few minutes, there is an item, the item number is item 16. And Mr. Bullock is here representing the Water District. And when we get to that, we will bring it back. We will have it on the table. And Mr. Bullock hopefully can answer the questions that you have concerning the commissioners. Okay, Mr. Bullock, welcome, and we'll get to you in just a bit. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is the pledge. Joshua from Western Hills High School is leading us in the pledge. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Joshua from Western Hills High School. We appreciate it. Thank you. Very good job. And we're glad that so many students and people are active in helping us with the Pledge of Allegiance. The next item on the agenda is authorization for approval of minutes from a regular meeting of April 1st, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Squire Muller with the motion and seconded by Squire Sebastian. Discussion? Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Squire Blackburn?
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to receive the Franklin County Extension District's fiscal year 2021-2022 budget.
So moved.
Moved by Squire Sebastian. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Squire Tracy. Discussion? Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. The next item is second reading and approval of an ordinance amending the table of special ordinances, Section 1, zoning map changes of the Franklin County Code of Ordinances for a 10.166 acre property identified as PVA map number 108-00-00-009.00, located at 827 Snavely Road, from Rural Residential District RR to Agricultural District AG.
So moved.
Who did that?
Squire
Squire Tracy,
Tracy.
okay. Is there a second? Second by Squire Moore. Discussion? Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is second reading and approval of an ordinance amending the table of special ordinances, Section 1, zoning map changes of the Franklin County Code of Ordinances from a 203.59 acre property identified as PVA map number 046-00-00-007.00, located on Harvey Land Road from Rural Residential District RR to Agricultural District AG.
So moved.
Squire Moore, seconded by Squire Booth. Discussion, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. The next item, authorization to reject bids and re-advertise for renovation to the county-owned building located at 231 East Main has been removed from the agenda. The next item is authorization to advertise for request for proposal for broadband feasibility study.
So moved.
Second.
And seconded by Squire Moore. Discussion, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
yes,
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells,
Yes. The next item is authorization to approve a resolution authorizing a donation in the amount of $20,000 to the Sunshine Center for use in the continuation of essential services due to budget shortfall caused by the COVID-19 pandemic.
So moved.
Squire Muller,
second,
seconded by Squire Booth. Discussion, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
yes,
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. The next item is authorization to approve a resolution authorizing the filing of an application for grant funds under the Federal Victims of Crime Act, otherwise known as VOCA, through the Commonwealth of Kentucky Justice and Public Safety Cabinet.
so moved,
Second.
Booth and Sebastian. Discussion, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
yes,
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells,
Yes. The next item is authorization to approve a resolution adopting and approving the execution of a county road aid co-op program contract between the Fiscal Court and the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, Department of Rural and Municipal Aid for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Squire Moore. Discussion, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
yes,
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells,
Yes. The next item is authorization to purchase a 2022 Ford F-250 Super Duty 4x4 Super Cab pickup truck from Paul Miller Ford off the state master agreement for the road department.
So moved.
Squire Moore,
Second.
Squire Tracy on the second. Discussion, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
yes,
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells,
Yes, and this truck is to replace a truck that was rear-ended. And fortunately, our county employee is fine, but the truck is total, so this will replace that total vehicle. I vote yes. The next item is authorization to award bid for de-icing salt to the lowest bidder, Morton Salt Incorporated.
so moved,
Squire Booth, and who did the second? Squire Booth, is there a second by somebody?
Second.
Second by Squire Sebastian. Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
yes,
Squire Moore,
Yes, it's a necessary evil, so yes.
Judge Wells,
Yes. The next item is authorization to declare fire department property as surplus and disposed of by auction.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Motion is second. Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
yes,
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells,
Yes. The next item is authorization to declare sheriff's office property as surplus with disposal by auction and proceeds to go into the sheriff's vehicle maintenance line.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions? Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
yes,
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells,
Yes. I apologize. I made a mistake in saying that it was item 16 is actually item 15. Mr. Bullock, if you were on, could you unmute Mr. Bullock? Thank you. This next item is authorization to approve an order setting commissioner compensation for US 60 Water District of Shelby and Franklin counties. Mr. Bullock, the court had several questions. I'm going to call on them and then have them ask you the questions. Okay. Mr. Bullock is here and welcome. So court, would you proceed with your questions? First of all, let me ask you this. Are the Franklin County Commissioners not receiving, the two Franklin County Commissioners not receiving this compensation?
They are paid. We are paid, I believe it's $100, $125 a meeting is what we're currently being paid, which is far below the statutory maximum. And I can't speak for Franklin County, but for Shelby County, that ties us with the lowest lowest board in general in Shelby County.
So are you asking for Shelby County to also raise the rate then too?
Shelby County passed theirs on Tuesday.
Okay, so the Shelby County Commissioners are going to be paid this amount, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Squire Muller?
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Mr. Bullock. I just had a quick, hopefully simple question. I just wanted to make sure the water board is in current good financial standings. You know, before we obviously give money, I don't want to make sure the money is there to do it with.
We just had a visit from our auditor at the Tuesday meeting. He stated that we are financially sound, that he would put us in the top 20% of water districts of our size. We have a substantial nest egg. And we currently partner with North Shelby Water District. This motion is partially to raise our commissioners to match that pay of North Shelby, which still puts us tied for the second lowest in the district. But yes, there's plenty of money.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Squire Booth?
I'm sorry that I do not realize what compensation you are asking for, the dollar amount per month.
300. By statute, they can get up to 6,000 a year. What we're asking for is basically to acquire them. They'll get paid about $3,000, $3,600. Yeah, my math is bad on a Friday afternoon. I apologize.
It's all right. Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Bullock, thank you so much for joining us today. I noticed in the subject line of the memorandum that was sent to the judge, shared with the fiscal court, it talks about salmon construction commissioner compensation. Can you talk to us about that? Because I was presuming this was only about the water board. So I just want to make sure I understand the subject line of that.
That was a typo. I apologize for that.
Okay, that helps me a whole lot because I saw no reference to salmon and I didn't really understand what their construction firm had to do with the water district. Thank you very much.
It had nothing. It was a contractor that we had hired and it was a typo. I apologize for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Bullock? Okay, is there a motion to approve the order setting commissioners compensation for the US 60 Water District of Shelby and Franklin counties to it's $300, Mr. Bullock?
Correct, Judge. 300 per meeting.
Per commissioner.
I'll make the motion.
Squire Moore, is there a second? Is there a second? Squire Booth?
Yes.
Okay.
Farmdale Water District gets 300 a month. So
okay.
Sounds fair.
Any more discussion? If not, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Hill.
Yes, and thank you for the Franklin County, well, actually, everybody that serves on the water district, and especially those from Franklin County that serve on the water district. And Mr. Bullock, most appreciative of you being here to help with the guidance and the clarification of some of the questions that came about. So we appreciate it and wish you all the best and continue your great service to the west end of Franklin County. Thanks.
Thank you all, and I appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is we have removed the authorization to approve financial support request in the to the Franklin County Fair Board. That has been removed. The next item then is authorization to hire Jason Montgomery as a part-time bookkeeper to help Susan Lawrence.
So moved.
Moved by Squire Muller, second by Squire Blackburn. Discussion, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
yes,
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes, and we welcome Jason to our family here at Franklin County Fiscal Court and look forward to his great work in financing with Ms. Lawrence. The next item is authorization to approve cash transfers for the fiscal year 2020, 2021.
So moved.
Moved by Squire Moore, seconded by Squire Booth. Discussion, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
yes,
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. The next item is authorization to receive the treasurer's quarterly report for the 9 months ending March 31st, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
And seconded by Black.
Third.
Thank you,
Fourth.
guys. Thank you. Yes, third, fourth, fifth, whatever. So motion and seconded. Discussion, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
yes,
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. The next item is authorization to receive the treasurer's report.
So moved.
second,
Seconded by Squire Booth. Discussion, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
yes,
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. The next item is payment of claims. Is there a motion offered to deny any payment of any claim? Seeing no denial of claims, the claims are ordered to be paid. And the last item on the agenda is authorization to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, Squire Blackburn and
Second.
second by Squire Booth. All right, let's call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Squire
Yes.
Booth,
yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes, and I want to encourage everybody, please, if you haven't gotten one, get your vaccination. Come on, that's how we get back to normal. Goodness gracious, next fall, I sure want to go to football game. And I know that many parents want to see their kids play football. So let's get back to normal. Everybody get a vaccination if you haven't. So be safe and do the proper things to keep yourself safe. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.